All right, we got the stream open a second time. Hopefully that will take care of it. Video Ninja is still open for anyone who wants to join as a guest. Let me know if it's lagging more or less the second time around. Hopefully that will have resolved any of the lagging issues. I switched to using the actual hardware video encoding, so hopefully that will take care of business. I also just cut the TikTok stream. Also, I did change the frame rate to 24 frames per second just in case. We'll see if that will help. Although I don't know, the difference between 24 and 30 is sometimes detectable, sometimes not. But I think it should fix the lag, so we'll see. I think we should be good. But yeah, I did force it to go through the GPU. With that in mind, while we're waiting for a guest to load, let me grab our super chats and we'll get the ball rolling again. So hopefully that fixed everything. We got a super chat from Andy Run. Andy says, "Do you remember the moment you realized your beliefs were collapsing? What was that moment like?" It's a really good question. I do very distinctly remember the moment, or the moments, when I kind of started to realize that my belief systems weren't tenable. For me, it was a slow process of many, many years of there was one brick missing from the wall, and then 2 bricks from the wall, and then 3 bricks, and then you could look through it, you can see the other side. Eventually, there were so many bricks missing from the wall that I could just step over and walk to the side of I don't believe anymore. But I do remember there was a specific time, I would say, the moment that I woke up, and this is I think it was Sam Harris was the one who coined the term. This general idea that you just wake up and it's like it was a dream, like the stuff you used to believe isn't actually real. And there was a day like that for me where I kind of woke up one day and I was just kind of taking an assessment of my situation, and I was like, I don't believe it anymore. It just doesn't hit anymore. The things that I don't, they're just not true. I don't believe them. But it's interesting that there was a day that felt that way. I was just going to wake up and now I no longer really believe it. You know what I mean? Because it was such a long process for me. Satan, thank you for the super chat. Good to see you. It says, imagine working for 14 hours and working as a teacher in the evening. Justin is a man of honor. I do what I can say, and I do the best I can. We'll see how long I can survive before my voice gives out. Tomorrow's going to be a long day, but I think Friday is probably going to be normal, probably 9 hours. Venom Inside said, easy way to dismantle theists. Explain why you think a universe creator spoke to a few people. Yeah, it is weird that the divine hiddenness is such a problem, and we didn't get a chance to really dig into that with that last guest. But I did bring it up, and I agree with you. I think divine hiddenness is a real problem. And Super Sweaty Nerdman says the Bible has so many obvious problems it can't be taken as inerrant or univocal. Why the church tried to sell those narratives ever is beyond me. I think people are willing to accept bad religious texts as long as it gives them that mental and emotional feeling or edge that they're looking for. It eases, it pacifies something in their life. You know what I mean? And also, they're not reading it. If I've learned anything from doing these debates, is that nobody's reading these books. Santa Park, thank you for the super chat. It says there was supposed to be a restaurant on top of Rex's erection. Must have been circumcised. Oh, Santa Park, I love that you made that joke. And yes, it's now just a cell phone tower basically, but there was supposed to be a big rotating restaurant on top of Rex's erection, and the project failed. Didn't happen. He got circumcised. Got to tip, no tip. It's still there today. You can go see it. Bryce, I appreciate the super chat. It says the difference between a Christian apologist and a deconstructed atheist is the apologist does not understand rationalism or skeptic arguments, while the atheist has deconstructed all apologetics. That's basically it. There's this weird idea that the atheist, we just didn't study. We just don't know. If only we knew what they knew, we wouldn't. We wouldn't be atheists. That's ridiculous. Never Again, thank you so much for the 1999 super chat. Says, it always escapes me as to why we give credit to Greeks when they in fact learned most of everything from the Kemets in Africa. Well, I don't. That's not really the case. The Greeks are like a super interesting culture. They certainly did borrow from other cultures, but like the Greeks proper seem to have cropped up from the Mediterranean. We have a pretty coherent history of the Greeks. We kind of know where they came from, but did they interface with other religions, like the religion in Egypt? Of course. The religions in Africa? Absolutely. Sure. Definitely did. But I think it's, it might be, to me, it might be a little heavy handed to say that they learned most of what they knew from the Africans. I just don't find that to be the case, but certainly they did do some borrowing. And Abby Normal, I think you mean Abby who? That needs to be a knock-knock joke. I'm going to find a way to turn Abby who into a knock-knock joke. But Never Again, thank you so much for the $4.99 super thanks. I appreciate that. And Solar says, religious people and Cope, name a more iconic duo. You won't. They're like two peas in a pod. They're thick and thieves. And Dennis says, thank you for the super chat. It says, hi, Justin, idea. The homework fallacy of he fulfilled the prophecy, but he didn't do it yet. Did you do your homework? Yes. Where is it? I didn't do it yet. So you didn't do it. I did. Yeah. That's how these conversations work, actually. He fulfilled prophecies. Okay, read the prophecy. Oh, he's going to do that when he comes again. Okay, then he didn't fulfill the fucking prophecy, did he? All the time. And Angel says lagging worse than the second coming. Yeah, it was lagging prior. I think the lagging is mostly fixed, although I did downscale it to 24 frames per second. So it might look slow, but not laggy, if that makes sense. We'll see if that works. I think it's working. And Daniel says, thank you for the super chat, by the way, Daniel. It says, just popping in to say hi. Have a great stream. That Daniel, is it Daniel? Because you look like Daniel. That could be pronounced Danielle. I think you're a Daniel, though. Daniel, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. Big W, and thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting. All right, we've got somebody in our guest box. I'm going to reload before I forget. I'm going to reload our new super chat window real quick. 1 second. Let's see. There we go. Sorry, I just got to set up the stream properly. There we go. So our new stream window is open. I'm going to pop out the chat window real quick so I can see the chat separately, and then we'll be ready to rock and roll with all the software working the way that we need the software to work. And as far as I can tell, the software is not it's not crapping out either, right? The software, it seems to be sending a smooth stream. Hopefully that is the case. 1 second. Blah, 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 blah. There we go. Let me get the super chat window set up properly. Sorry about that. We'll have it set in just a moment. I think. Methinks. There we go. Let me grab one. Get it loaded in. There we go. Let me, sorry about that. Let me adjust the window properly, and then we'll be ready to go. All right. I think that, although our super chat window needs to be adjusted. 1 second. Sorry about that. Let me fix this window. Always something with the streams, trying to get everything working the way that you need them to. Okay, and then maybe I'll zoom out just a little bit. There we go. That first guest we had, I forget his name already. I was waiting for him to crash out, but he ended up just leaving instead, which is not quite as fun, but what are you going to do? You know what I mean? Anyways, Mega, thank you for the super chat. It says, Mega melts as Mega Melts Fast, Mega, is the only group that crashes out as hard as Christians when presented facts. Praise Doug. Well, thank you so much. Oh, I think you mean Mega. Now it makes sense to me, your name. I apologize. I'm an idiot. All right. But thank you for the super chat. I really appreciate that. And looks like we got our first guest in here. And I want to make sure that I'm reading the name of this guest correctly. So I've got on the screen Bear Jew, and that doesn't sound pejorative at all. So did you have a real name or what? Bear Jew? You're in the guest box, although I don't think you have any audio equipment set up. It says that you've got a headset plugged in. Well, judging by your name and the fact that your stuff doesn't work, and you know, I'm not sure I should be platforming someone with the name Bear Jew, anyways. So we're gonna take care of that. We'll just cut you now before you start uttering all kinds of racist things. I figured that might be the right move. You know what I mean? But anyways, we'll get to the next person in queue. If you want to be part of the discussion, go to tinyurl.com/guestdz. And you can join in the conversation. You don't have to sign up for anything. You don't have to join anything. You don't have to log in or give me your email. You just go to the link. It's also in the description of the video, and we'll get you pulled right in. So let me get our next guest in here. Also, thank you, Tally Beck, for the super chat. Big W friend. It's good to see you tonight. Tally says, thanks for bringing back appointment television. You know what's funny? Like, the idea in the old TV days that you had like sit around and wait for a show to come on, it's crazy. But we all did it. Like we're like, oh, I got to be home on Friday night at 6 o'clock to catch my show. Thank God we're not doing that anymore. All right, so we've got, is it Anthony with us? Anthony, if you're talking, I don't think anyone can hear you. I don't see any bars on your end showing that you're talking. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, there we go. All right, we're good to go. All right, Anthony.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep. Welcome in, Anthony. Anthony, are you at least 18, and do you believe in some kind of a god?
I'm definitely 18 for sure.
You do? Okay. And which god do you believe in?
Yeah, there's a bit of
your connection or your microphone's like breaking up really bad. Can you talk closer to the mic? I think its connection just might be bad.
I'm sorry. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you when you're talking. It's just kind of choppy.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you right now, yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bad connection.
Yeah, do you have Wi-Fi you can connect to? It seems kind of delayed as well.
Maybe I'll try another time. I just wanted to ask you a question.
All right, yeah, come back anytime. Yeah, it's really delayed too, unfortunately. All right, well, we got another guest in the guest box. Guys, if you want to get in, there's a link in the description for you to click that will get you into the conversation. So we'll get you pulled right in. Also, JMR, thank you for the super chat. Let me see if this is all readable on the screen, though, because it looks like part of it got cut off. This is a long super chat, actually. There we go. Perfect. Now it should all be readable. JMR says, after finishing all past lives, I'm convinced every Christian that has ever existed thinks that demonstrable means demon monster table, and that's why they're confused when you ask if their God is demonstrable. So I actually stopped asking people that question because so many people didn't know what the word meant. I just got tired of saying it to people. But isn't it baffling to me that people don't know like some of these basic words in English? Oh man. Welcome in. Is it Dan?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How you doing, Dan?
Good, man. I'm actually an atheist, agnostic atheist, but actually, I just want to thank you for cooking my friend Casey.
You're the one that sent Casey, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And also, I want to clear up. Bear Jew is not pejorative. It's from Inglorious Bastards. You never saw that movie?
Mm. I have
It's
seen it,
good. He's
but
the man.
I
He's
don't
the Bear
remember
Jew. He's
that
the man.
name.
Oh, come on, man. You gotta watch it.
Now I'm sad. I
But
need to rewatch it so I can catch the reference.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, but dude, I talk to this guy every day. He's one of my friends since like childhood, and you have experienced a fraction of the pain that I deal with every day, pretty
He can't
much.
focus at all.
Dude, I know. It's so bad. He pivots every single time, like he gets a chance. He pivots to something else, some irrelevant topic. He just can't answer questions. But dude, we talk about a lot of Bible verses too, so I'm like disappointed you didn't get to it, but I'm not surprised, honestly.
I was really hoping to get to it, but like he wanted, it sounds like he was willing to have the problem of evil conversation, which I think is a good conversation to have with Christians, and not so much with Muslims, but with Christians, because they really have this idea that somehow all the evil shit here God didn't do. And he definitely
Yeah.
did do it.
Yeah, but you're asking me if it's unnecessary, and he's saying, well, God needed to flood the earth. Well, then it's necessary. So you're not understanding the question. But I wanted to see if you could just like go over a couple like verses that we discuss, maybe, if
Sure.
you'd be down.
Mhm.
All right. So the thing he brought up was the voice of one calling in the wilderness, the way for the Lord, make straight in the desert.
Mhm.
He's saying it's the divine council that's speaking this. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, so I mean, the general idea that a divine council is speaking is not like a new one. Like we have divine councils in the Old Testament. There's no question about that. The question is, why would I believe that the divine council is speaking here? Because it's clearly a message that is coming from God to a prophet. It starts out, "Comfort, oh comfort my people, says your God."
Says your God.
That's
Yeah.
the beginning of it. That's the opening line.
Yeah. I know it's always a context thing. The whole Isaiah 53. We don't even have to get into that at all. But
Yeah, they certainly aren't reading the text.
yeah, no, there was a couple other ones. The one where the it says Yahweh rained down fire from Yahweh,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
he's trying to argue that it's these two powers in heaven. And I kind of, I've heard you talk about this before, so I'm just wondering if you can touch on that too.
Yeah, so the Yahweh rained down fire from heaven. To me, this is just a grammatic anomaly, but this was addressed a long time ago in the writings of the Jewish rabbis. So, for example, they point out in the Talmud that this happens with Lamech as well. Lamech gets used in the third person in the same way in the book of Genesis. It's just one of those weird anomalies, and we get the same thing with the name Elohim. Sometimes God talks about himself in the third person. There's just a lot of, because these texts I think are prone to corruption, sometimes we see these grammatic anomalies. The difference is that like an actual like scholar would see these and be like, oh yeah, this looks like a textual corruption, it's nonsense, or it's meaningless, right? Whereas a believer has to say, no, there's a deep hidden secret meaning to it.
Yeah. My thing was like, why would it, if there's like these two powers in heaven, like this is like an important theological point that would be, expressed clearly in the Bible. And if you have to point to like this cryptic like interpretation of it to say that there's these two powers in heaven, like why would God want to hide that from the rest of the Bible where it says over and over like one God, one God, one God,
Well, the other thing too is that passage from Genesis 19 doesn't say two gods. It says Yahweh rained down fire from Yahweh in heaven. Right. And so both of them are in fact Yahweh, but it's one person because Yahweh is in heaven when it happens. So the only way that this works out for the Christian is they want to find a way to say that the two angels that visited were somehow also Yahweh. And that
that's exactly what he says.
But that's then exactly what he says. You would have to have two Jesuses because there were two angels, both of them referred to as men. And then there was Yahweh proper. Yahweh proper leaves. So after the conversation that Yahweh has with Abraham, Yahweh goes back. He doesn't go on to Sodom and Gomorrah. Only the two men go on to Sodom and Gomorrah. So it's clear that Yahweh showed up with two angels and then had dinner with Abraham, told Abraham what was going on, and then Yahweh went back to heaven. The two men carried on, and then when it was time to send down the fire and sulfur, obviously it happened from heaven because Yahweh was up in heaven.
Gotcha. And then one more. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but one more is the Psalm of David and how it's, the Lord said to my Lord. And then the other psalm was where Jesus says, my God, why have you forsaken me?
Psalm 22.
And of course he thinks that's like a prophecy that's being fulfilled. I think it's just like Jesus is just remembering that psalm, like, because he's in a similar situation, getting fucked up,
Right. So that's the funny thing about Psalm 22 is not only does Jesus not use it like a prophecy, it seems to me like he's just saying that, he's comparing himself necessarily to David, right? Because David suffered greatly, right?
It's
we
like
don't
when
really...
you're in a conversation and you say a movie quote, like you're not the guy from the movie, you're fucking just referencing that quote because it's like it reminds you of that situation.
Yeah, so that's kind of the reading I would use for Jesus. But if you go into Psalm 22, it's clear that it's not prophetic. It's just a psalm of lament from King David. It doesn't even mention piercing in verse 16. You have to do all kinds of nonsense interpretations to get to the word pierce. And it's clearly about King David. If you just read the story of King David's life, it matches his own struggles. So I mean, obviously it's just King David doing what King David did, which is write lamentations. And Psalm 110 obviously is not even from David. Psalm 110 is to King David, about King David, from somebody in King David's court, one of his prophets, which is why it starts out. He says, a prophecy or an utterance of Yahweh to my Lord. And then everything in it follows exactly a description of what was promised to David in the Bible. And we even find fulfillment of some of these predictions, like making your enemies under your feet was fulfilled in 1 Kings chapter 5, verse 3, according to Solomon.
Awesome, man. Awesome. And I've heard you say before, like certain gospels, they reference the Old Testament prophecies and like they get it wrong. Like I think you said like Matthew, somewhere he says that there's this prophecy, but it's a totally different book that he got the book wrong.
Mark does it. Mark screws up. In Mark chapter 1, Matthew has another one too in Matthew 27. We can talk about both of them. In Mark chapter 1, Mark attributes a quotation from Malachi and gives it to Isaiah. He does actually quote part of the Isaiah passage, but what he says is, as it is written in the prophet Isaiah, see, I'm sending my messenger ahead of you who will prepare your way. That doesn't come from Isaiah. That comes from Malachi. But it sounds a lot like the passage that is from Isaiah, which is in verse 3, the voice of one crying out in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight his paths. So Mark just misremembered. He thought the whole saying came from Isaiah, and it actually didn't. One came from Isaiah, and one came from Malachi chapter 3. We have a similar situation in Matthew 27, where there's a quotation that's usually given to Jeremiah, but it actually comes from Zechariah. Let me find it real quick. When it talks about the 30 pieces of silver. Verse 9, it said, for this reason, blah, 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 then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah, and they took 30 pieces of silver, the price of the one on whom a price had been set, so on and so forth. That quotation does not come from Jeremiah. That quotation comes from Zechariah. And it had nothing to do with the Messiah being betrayed.
All right. Awesome, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, Dan, thanks for sending some fresh meat, and it was good to hear from you.
All right, man. Thanks.
Cheers.
Bye.
Yeah. When that guy came up, I was assuming somebody sent him. Somebody was putting him up to it. I'm glad that we found out who was actually doing it. Oh man. All right, let me grab. I got 3 super chats, and then we got a guest waiting to get in, and we'll get the next conversation going. D-Bone says, "I think it's crazy that the God of the entire universe created trillions of suns and planets, is concerned with the geopolitics of the ancient Middle East. Absolutely absurd to me." So this is such a good thing because, like, it's such a good point, D-Bone, and thanks for the super chat. This idea that God is like he's so magnificent. He created all the heavens and the earth, and he's managing all this stuff. But he's going to be really upset, like if you touch yourself, or if a man lies with a man, or you eat shellfish or something. The whole idea is nonsensical. It's ridiculous. If I was the most powerful agent in the universe, I wouldn't spend all of my time. I certainly wouldn't spend all of my time micromanaging or spying on everybody in their intimate hours. But Kay, thank you for the super chat. Kay says, "Hi, Justin. Wonderful to catch you on the stream. Christians preach love and unity, but act in hate and division. No love like Christian hate." Nailed it. None. There's no love like Christian hate. And last one from Tudor. Thank you so much, Tudor. Tudor says, "So Jesus corrected for Adam's sin, but why did he forget the women? Shouldn't faith in Jesus protect women from labor pains? Also, if snakes believe in Jesus, they will grow legs." So this is the irony of the whole Jesus reversed a curse, is you have to then believe that he only reversed like the one thing, like the forgiveness part. Everything else, that's end times prophecy, baby. That's going to come later. And it, just like all the prophecies with Jesus, none of them actually really came true. The stuff that they want to say Jesus did is all second coming nonsense. But we got a guest with us here. It looks like goes by the name Despondent Dude and doesn't have a camera, but does have me being piped in, which is interesting. I could just turn that off. So how you doing, Despondent? You there? Hello? This is why like The Line and the Atheistic Experience have call screeners. This is exactly why. I don't have that luxury. Despondent, I don't think you're actually with us. Did you mean to be up here? Did you get up here by accident? What's happening right now? Am I being punked? Oh boy. All right, well, listen, I don't know what happened to Despondent, but we don't have any opposition in the box. If you're watching the stream and you want to have a discussion about the existence of your God, that most definitely does exist, then go ahead and put the description, or put the link from the description into your web browser, and you'll be pulled into the conversation as tinyurl.com/DZGuest. I'm not streaming anything to TikTok tonight because I don't think my internet connection can handle it. I think it should be back up and ready to go for Friday, but I'm in a hotel right now, and their high-speed Wi-Fi has been down. They were supposed to be fixing it, but it doesn't seem to. They're saying your link is cut off. Oh, it's not all on the screen? Oh, thank you for letting me know. Is it all readable now? I just moved it. The stream is a couple seconds behind, but I think most people should see it. Let me know if it's readable, though, because if it's not readable, we got a problem. All right, well, Despondent left. Anyways, I think we should be good to go. There is a way to set up call screening in Video Ninja, but I think it's a lot. Oh, well, I had a guest. There was a guest in the guest box. They cut out real fast. There is a way to do call screening within Video Ninja before I pull them in. I haven't set that up because then it would, like, every time I go live, I would need somebody to fill that role, and it just seems like it's too cumbersome and too much of an ask. But I don't know if the show, typically as long as you got a full guest box, you can move through the nonsense guests pretty quickly and keep the show rolling. But we do have Tay with us from Video Ninja. How you doing, Tay? Tay, is that a doll? What is that? What's happening right now? It looks like a doll, if I had to guess. Just saying. Tay. I mean, like, I assume you can hear me over there, Tay. What's I want to blow this up. What's happening? Does anyone know what kind of a doll that is? They left. I don't know what's happening with Tay. I don't think Tay is okay. Something's wrong with Tay. Oh boy. Well, Tay turned their video off. I'm just gonna disconnect Tay. Tay, if you actually wanted to come up and talk, you're welcome to do so. But I had to cut you. I think you're up here by accident or something. Anyways, I think the link should all be readable. It's also in the description of the video. If you go to the description, you'll find a link to tinyurl.com/guestdz. You just click that. You don't have to sign up for anything. We don't have guests coming in from TikTok tonight because I can't really dual stream on my Mac to TikTok and take guests, but we're doing what we can. But our friend Morpheus is with us. How you doing, Morpheus?
Hey, what's up, bro?
Not too much. How you doing, bud?
Hey, man, nothing. I'm trying to get through. First of all, yo, Justin, I wanted to tell you, you know I'm an audio engineer, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen your soundboard, and I know you got a pretty sweet setup. Unfortunately, I don't have any of that equipment.
Yeah. So I was offering, if you needed any kind of editing, any kind of work to help, because I want to help your channel grow. I really believe in your channel. I just got off doing a show on one of my channels, and I definitely sent people over here and promoted Deconstruction Zone. But if you need any work or any kind of help with audio editing from one stuff, whatever, then wanting to get things, yo, I'm your guy. I got your back.
I do need to eventually solve a problem that I don't know if anyone's solved yet, which is taking the guest audio from TikTok and importing it into Video Ninja so that the guests on Video Ninja and the guests on TikTok Studio can talk to each other just like it's one group session. I've tried using the typical cabling apps. So you can route the audio from one app to another. They don't work. I think they used to work prior to Windows 11. They're not working on Windows 11. So
yeah, Windows 11 is a problem. They haven't finished getting the bugs out of that yet.
Right. So I think that's my biggest issue is the software I have probably did work on Windows 10 and prior, but it's not working on Windows 11. And I've set it up. I've seen it work before. I know it works, but it won't work on my machine.
Right. Well, we can figure it out between you and I. We'll figure it out. But if anything like that you want to, you've captured this, whatever, and you want to edit it, clean it up, or do it, because I do podcast stuff for people also, sound designs and stuff like that. So I'm the guy, man. No, anything you want to do, bro, I got your back.
Well, I really appreciate the support, and Morpheus, let's talk sometime in the coming months about trying to fix the audio setup. I've got a lot of stuff happening over the summer, but I really want to be able to, if TikTok doesn't get banned in the fall, I really want to be able to integrate the TikTok features into what I've got going on so that I can allow guests from TikTok interface with people not on TikTok, because a lot of people don't want to get TikTok.
Yeah. You're right about that. So, but we'll figure it out. That's a technical issue that we can figure it out. And we make it happen, man. Whatever we got to do, we do. We'll make it happen.
I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate the offer, man.
Yeah, I got your back all the way, bro. Right, no question.
Well, Mr. Morpheus,
I did some stuff also for Midvision for Derek fixing his stuff up, so we could.
Oh, I believe that.
Derek can tell you. But what I want to ask you a question real quick, right? Mm-hmm. I'm reading up, and I was doing some studying up. And I know you may have heard of this also, like the Eloise and a Yahwist,
Right.
and they're
Mhm.
two different groups. And I
Mhm.
seem to come to the conclusion that Jesus was part of the Elohists, and maybe the priests were Yahwist,
So
right?
I think it's more
Okay.
complicated than that, but I think your instinct is correct. When we look at like the schools of redaction for the Hebrew Bible, specifically for the Torah, it seems to be that the Elohist has a more developed idea of angelology and is probably more okay with like henotheism or even small forms of polytheism, whereas
Right.
Yahwism is much more like one singular God. There can't be multiple gods, different things like that. But these are
Which seems to be what the Pharisee were. The Pharisee in them seemed to me to be Yahwist, right? And they conflicted. So because I was looking, well, what was Jesus' conflict with the Pharisees? And I was like, oh, they were Yahwist.
Well, I think it's a difficult thing to label them as Yahwist because I think in the first century, all of them believed that they were Yahwist. And when we refer to the JDP theory, it's important to recognize that these aren't really groups that people in the ancient world of Jesus would have known about. They're more or less constructed groups that scholars more or less talk about. So, like, if you believed what Jesus believed, like, you wouldn't have thought of yourself as an Elohist. You know what I mean? These are like labels that we much later had to give to people. The world of Jesus's time period was pretty diverse in what they believed. When we talk about the Yahwist and the Elohist and the Deuteronomist, and I'm a priest and the priestly editor as well. These are more or less referring to the textual traditions than it is to like a cultural identity, although the cultural identity fed into the textual tradition. So there's some link there, but I think it may not be as directly of a link as as you might want it to be, but there certainly is a link there, and it certainly does explain some of the differences between what we find in northern Israel and what we found in southern Israel. Because the
Yeah,
northern
I thought
Israelites thought they were real Israelites, worshiping the real God.
right. So I thought it seemed more like a different, like different school of thought, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Would that be considered that like the different school of thoughts? But you said it were created later on or developed later on.
I
But
would say there were. So for example, when you have like the Pharisees and the Sadducees didn't even believe in divine revelation past the Torah. So they didn't believe in resurrection of the dead, they didn't believe in any of the prophecies, none of that stuff. They didn't believe any of it. Whereas the Pharisees believed in all the law and the prophets. And Jesus actually agrees with this group of people that the law and the prophets are in fact sacred. And then you've got other groups like the Essenes or the Zealots who believed in the law, the prophets, plus additional apocryphal books. And it seems to be that Jesus came from this last pairing, where he probably was part of an apocalyptical sect similar to the Essenes who believed in the Bible, like the Hebrew Bible, plus all the writings, all the prophets, all the Torah, plus also apocryphal texts like Enoch and Jubilees, and all the apocrypha, like the additions to Daniel and Baruch and whatnot. So, but his belief system, I agree with you. If you look at what Jesus believed, it seems to match more in line with what we read in the Elohist text.
right. That's the conclusion that I came to so far. So so my thing is from that point, like say between or within the Jewish tradition, between Abraham and Jesus, there's about 48 prophets, right? Give or take, right?
But it kind of
And if
depends. It
between
depends on who you ask, but there's quite a few of them. Yeah.
yeah, so but the chain hasn't been broken between all of them, right? Between 48, 38, 50, whatever that number is, the chain has never been broken as far as prophecies and things and so forth and concerned. So my thought is, well, if it's 40, let's say the number is 48 in between there, right? And that chain is not broken, and then it gets broken when Jesus comes, why would I go with the one who where the chain is broken versus the 48 where the chain is not broken? For a Christian, like why would you do that?
Right.
You understand? Because like all these prophets are keeping the same chain. They're not breaking the chain. Everything they're saying, whatever prophet came after this one, they're consistent. I can see consistency amongst all of them. So then when you get Jesus and then the chain gets broken and it's something completely different, why would a person or Christian or somebody go with this one versus this 48 or whatever number it may be, where it's a consistency?
Right. Well, they don't have a reason to. Yeah, I agree with you. So if you're a Jewish person considering Jesus, whether now or in the first century, there's not a single reason why you would change from Judaism to Christianity. There's not a compelling reason, unless like you read a bunch of verses out of context and now you're convinced that he fulfilled the prophecies. But that's about it. Once you get over that hurdle, there's nothing.
There's a problem. So in the first century, like how many Jews converted to Christianity, would you say, in the first century?
Not many. That's why the Bible is full of Greeks. That's why Paul had to go to the Greeks. Paul couldn't convert Christians, and we don't really have any evidence to suggest that the churches set up by the disciples, if they set any up, were large. Like it seems to be that like all 12 disciples, had they actually started ministry, was overseeing a rather small church of mixed of Jews and Greeks, whereas Paul's church, most of them were primarily Greek. Some of them obviously had Jews, but they seemed very Greek. And the Gospels read like they're written to a Greek audience, which is obviously why they're written in Greek. So like if the Gospels, the most important text to the ministry of Jesus, are like they're written in Greek and they sound like they're written to Greek-speaking people, then I'm inclined to believe that the early church was mostly Greek and not Jew.
Because that would imply that was the intended audience.
Right. It was.
Right?
I agree. Yep.
So then real quick, I'm gonna let you go, right? So that being said, that's why we got to do that. I can't wait till you do that whole section on Jesus versus Paul, because I think that's very important.
I actually started notes on that. It should be fun.
Cool. Okay. I'm gonna email you something, and then you got my information, so we can figure out how we can fix that audio situation.
Yeah, let's definitely work on that.
Absolutely, my brother. All right, I'm gonna hang out with you for the night. So I'm here.
Good to talk to you, friend.
All right, bro.
All right, we're gonna grab Aiden from the guest queue, and we'll get the conversation moving right along. Also, super sweaty nerd man, I appreciate the super chat and great name. It says the importance of forgiveness is tremendous. I don't see how or why you need to even grant Jesus ontological status to have that be meaningful. Yeah, I agree. The crazy idea that the God of the universe had to execute his son just to forgive people is a nonsensical claim. It's a non-starter for me too. It's silly. Why? It makes no sense. Also, Bear Jew, there he is. Bear Jew says, I'll gladly be your call screener. Well, Bear Jew, I don't know if I'm ready for that yet because it's such a large commitment. But I do definitely appreciate the support and the willingness to screen calls. It certainly speaks volumes. And also, Black Rose Gallery, thank you for the 1999 super chat. Appreciate that, Black Rose. Black Rose says, love your work. Well, thank you so much for supporting my work, Black Rose, and we're going to keep doing what we do. We are going to keep cooking them. And thank you so much, Kenneth. Good to see you tonight, Kenneth. Kenneth says, Judas Iscariot made the real sacrifice. He did, right? He partook in a predestined betrayal and got punished for it. Not that other guy who had a weekend off. Isn't that crazy? That, like, the one thing Judas did that we really know about that was wicked, like sealed his entire fate. It's kind of presumed that he went to hell, but he was predestined to do it. Like God chose him for that purpose. It's weird. All right, we got Aiden with us. How you doing, Aiden?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good. Thank you for asking. Aiden, are you at least 18 and are you a believer?
I am 24, ready to go.
Cool. And what God do you believe in?
I believe in the Father, Jesus' Father.
Okay, so you believe in the Bible then?
For the most part, yeah.
Okay, do you believe in all of the Bible or like parts of it?
I believe in the Spirit, if that makes sense. I don't believe in the parts that were, I guess, of the flesh.
How do you know which parts are spirit and which parts are flesh?
I guess what things kind of came from more the animalistic side of a being compared to the logical side, if that kind of makes sense.
I don't follow yet, but I mean, I'm all ears. If you could, do a little explaining for me.
Yeah, and I guess I'll just kind of start from the beginning. I think maybe not everybody knows, but the word Elohim, for example, is a plural, singular masculine, it's a plural and a singular masculine. So depending on the context that it's used is kind of how you can figure out what it's saying.
Sure.
In the creation of man,
I don't know if I would
ahead.
read it that way. I read Elohim as a concrete abstraction from the word El, which had various editions of it, but a concrete abstraction in Semitic languages. And the example I give a lot because it just happens to be common in the Bible, but there's a lot of them actually, is like the word for virginity in the Bible. So the word for virgin, Bethula, in order to make it, no, it just means virgin. So the word virgin in Hebrew is Bethula, and the way that you make that into the word virginity, so now you're taking it from a noun to an abstraction. You just make it a plural. It just becomes Bethulot. And so this idea that you can take a noun of some kind and then you could derive an abstraction from it just by making it plural seems to be what's happening with the title of Elohim. The word Elohim seems to be just referring to a divine entity or a godlike entity. It's not necessarily the word for God. Like they had a word already for God. It was El. And
yeah, and they also, I understand that. Like you have El, you have El Shaddai, you have all these different variations of El, and then you have Yahweh, the Lord God. And so the argument that I'm making, I guess, is largely based off just what kind of makes sense to me. I believe that when Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, I believe it was in Matthew, and I can pull the specific verse where he is basically telling them that their father is not his father. And also, this is another thing that I've heard you talk about numerous times where you kind of are like, well, how can you justify all the suffering of animals, all the suffering of when Joshua, led an army to basically massacre all these people?
I've never used that argument.
Well, no, about this, not that one, but the suffering of animals and stuff like that. I'm just talking about more things that were based off the flesh. Yeah, and that's because I've only been on here a few times. I actually, a little bit ago, you pulled me up, but my mic wasn't working. But so the idea of it is that Jesus was a man who separated fleshly desire from the spirit. And I guess who I believe God is a collective spirit. I guess the idea that everything is a sound, whether it is energy or matter, kind of is how I think of him.
What's a sound?
A sound is I guess, a wavelength in a certain sense. So if you break down all matter and all energy in the universe, whether it's sound, light, or actual physical matter, it all breaks down to a certain resonance or frequency or vibration. So the idea that
sound is what happens when like there is a physical movement through our atmosphere, right? It's like the particles in our atmosphere are being acted against, and then that wave travels until it hits your ear, right?
Well, that's even a particle is a certain frequency.
That's a physical thing, right? And you can't do it in space. That's why you can't like talk. You can't like yell at somebody in space.
No, that's for sound, 100%. And like for example, like the idea I'm getting to is that when you separate the flesh from the spirit, and I guess you are no longer operating on a level that's more like an animal, I guess, like you're not operating from the vessel.
Can you define what you mean? Because like I think human behavior and animal behavior look really similar to me.
That's because they are very similar.
So what's the difference?
They're the same thing. But there isn't a difference. The difference is the complexity of our mind, I would imagine. Okay. Is that I kind of think of the soul as almost the flame that kind of powers the machine of a body. So our minds are more complex. So the energy that would have to inhabit our minds would have to be fitting to that complexity.
Right, but I don't believe we have spirits, right? What would be the evidence that would lead one to believe that spirits even exist?
That we have, like, for what I mean by a spirit to me is just another form of energy.
I'm not entirely clear. I know what you mean by energy.
By energy, I mean the same thing you can measure as electricity or as warmth or as a radio wave. It's all the same thing. Even it's just a different form, a different. I believe you could.
How do we measure it?
Not something that I believe we'd be able to measure. I do think that one thing you could do is, I think our bodies are a very good reflection of the energy that is inside, and kind of vice versa. But
right,
what was you saying?
We can measure all the forms of energy you're referring to. I'm trying to figure out how we can measure the spirit energy. Because the measurement is kind of important, actually, because as defined in science, energy is the measured rate of change of like a physical or an entity that exists in the real world. Like it's not like a spirit. It's not like a thing that you can touch. Like energy is not a stuff; it's a property.
Well, I understand what you're saying. Maybe it's not something that we can measure yet. Maybe at some point we'll get to the point where we can. And a lot of what I'm saying, I'm not going to say is truth. It's just things that kind of make sense to me. When it comes down to the idea of, I guess, heaven and hell, I think it has to do with the density of that spirit. And I think what makes people different widely is the density of their spirit. And so if you are somebody who, I guess, and I don't think you have to believe in God in order to have a spirit that's less dense and is more complex and will rise up according, to the density of it. But I think when you do things that are wrong in life and you are constantly, I guess,
what do you think density
holding
is?
On to density, I think in a way you can say it's weight, or it is a compilation of things. It is something that is less complex, in a sense, like the difference between a snowflake and a drop of water. is the best way I can kind of describe it.
The density is how tightly packed the particles of something are, right? So when something
Yeah.
like when something has a quantity of something else, like a particular molecule, right? Think of like the stuff that makes up lead versus the stuff that makes up styrofoam. Like there's a density of material there that accounts
And
for the weight. But the density is referring to physical particles. Like what you're describing doesn't have physical particles.
Yeah, I don't think I think that's another thing. I think that in the physical, it's going to mirror in, I guess, if you want to call it the spiritual, or just in a another form of energy that maybe isn't able to be measured in the physical. Again, there's a lot of things I don't know. I mostly just wanted to kind of also hear your thoughts, because I do have a lot of respect for somebody else who operates off of things that kind of make sense. I know you're more like you want to be able to put the actual facts to it. As far as the idea that I'm thinking is the same way that, like, water and oil separate, the same way that our planet sits and where it does according to the mass of the other planets in the solar system, and things like that. It's the same idea that when you die and you hold on to all this pain and guilt and things like that, and it's almost like sometimes when you're hitting rock bottom, it's not just a metaphor, it's almost a physical thing you can feel, and you feel weighed down. So I think when you die and you feel that same way and you're holding on to all these things, now that energy that inhabits your body is going to sink as well, if that makes sense.
It does not, because you would have to assume then that the soul or the spirit or whatever you want to call it is made up of particles. And why would the particles within my spirit be more dense than somebody else's?
I would say due to the complexity of it, if that makes sense. So kind of like how a drop of water that is the same mass as a snowflake is going to be more dense, and it's like in that way, if that makes sense.
So and the more complicated you are, the more likely you are to go to hell?
I wouldn't say complicated. I would say almost
you said complex.
Well, no, non-complex. If you are complex, it's a progression of spirit is what I believe in. I believe that you have all these things that happen in your life, and depending on how you act to them, you either are going to better yourself or you're going to make yourself, I guess, you're going to be moving backwards in a sense. You are going to change more into a drop of water instead of a snowflake. I'm not like I wouldn't say I'm extremely smart as far as vocabulary goes, so it's a little hard for me to explain certain things, but that's kind of what I'm trying to get at.
I guess what I'm trying to figure out is, I assume you believe that there's two afterlives, heaven and hell?
I believe it's all one thing, and this is another thing that I believe in, is I also believe in reincarnation, and I think there's examples of it in the Bible as well.
Carry on. Give me an example of reincarnation in the Bible. I actually know of one of them.
Are you thinking of John the Baptist?
No.
Okay, so John the Baptist was born of the spirit of Elisha, and after he was also beheaded, Jesus spoke to his disciples, and I mean, I can pull up the verse, but basically what he said is, do you guys not know what they did to Elijah when he came back, right? And he was referring to John the Baptist when he was being beheaded, and then the disciples kind of had the revelation that that's what he was talking about.
Can you show me in the Bible when Elijah died?
Are you talking about when he was taken up?
Yep. He didn't die.
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
You can't be reincarnated if you didn't die.
Well, I think there's a lot of things also in the Bible that there's very literal things, and there's things that also mean what they're saying, but not exactly being understood the way it is. I think that when you go to heaven, and here's another thing about heaven and the angels. I believe the people who created man were actually some of the higher ups of the angels. And this is another thing. I think of the angels, and this is kind of silly, but in a way of like a galactic confederation, if that makes sense, where they
There's
are
a galactic confederation of angels.
I would believe so. I mean, that's kind of what would make sense to me, is that there are all these different beings that are way more civilized and enlightened than humans. They're not perfect. They're still in vessels. And I think that they're obviously way further ahead than us. And I think that's another reason that we don't have a missing link between our ancient hominid ancestors and modern man, is because there isn't one.
Do they have lasers?
So I mean, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I think it's definitely something to think about as far as that goes for me anyway.
Yeah, I know that. There's no fucking way he's serious. If that's not a troll, then shame on me for misjudging him. But if that's a troll. Nobody believes that nonsense. Nobody believes that nonsense. That was a troll making it up as he went. Interesting for a moment, but no way that's a real person. I cannot bring myself to believe that was a real person who believes that stuff. I refuse to believe somebody is like that. Anyways, we got some guests in the queue. Our guests pulled up from the queue. Thanks for the super chat, Adele. It says, make sure you're not back in Kansas City with this last minute travel. Email me, Adele. Send me an email, Adele. Dave, welcome to the Kraken crew. And also Rock Hard for Doug's with us tonight. Good to see you, Rock Hard. Thank you for the super chat. It says, I must have been living under a rock, hopefully Doug, but recently found out that Recovering from Religion org started in my own city. Volunteered today and will hopefully be helping soon. Shit. Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about, Doug. I don't know where it started, but I'm glad that you're going to be able to participate in it, because that's fantastic. Actually, the line just did a really big fundraiser for Recovering from Religion. It was really successful. And Kenneth, again, thank you so much for the super chat. It says, just letting the guests ramble their nonsense so that they can play back and see how stupid they are. The spirit is very dense with that one. You nailed it. Absolutely nailed it, Kenneth. All over it. And Serpent says, it's okay, man. I remember my first acid trip too. That's what I was experiencing. If the dude wasn't on drugs, I don't know what he was doing. He wasn't right. I think he was a troll. Johanna's good to see you though tonight. He says, got those cards finished yet? So many fallacies today. I'm not home. I don't have my fallacy cards, or else I'd hold one up. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I need to get those finished. We're going to take care of that. And Teresa, thank you so much for the 99 super chat. I really appreciate the support, Teresa. And we've got a couple guests now waiting to get in. So let me get our guests pulled in, and then we'll keep the show rolling. There are 2 Aidens in the guest box, and Despondent Dude came back. So, or Dud, I can't tell. We'll see if Despondent is with us this time. How you doing, Despondent? You got 3 red bars, which is probably why it wasn't working last time. And it still doesn't work. Okay. Your connection's bad. Okay, you gotta get some Wi-Fi. All right, let's get our next guest pulled in. And back from an earlier live stream, we've got Elaine. Hold on. Elaine?
Hello?
How you doing, Elaine?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you twice, actually.
Hear me twice.
Yeah, it's a little echoey.
I have earbuds now, so.
Yeah, your connection's
Let me
still.
put the other earbud in.
Your connection's still really bad, though.
Here, let me turn off my Wi-Fi, because my Wi-Fi.
Shoot, he's got Bose earbuds, though. That's what I'm talking about. Should have some audio quality. Did he just drop right now? Yeah. Turn off his Wi-Fi and he's gone. Lord took him. I've never seen someone try so hard to get into a guest box and fail so many times. I'm really hoping that one day he'll get his technology and his internet connection worked out so we can talk to him. I'm pretty sure he's tried to talk to me about 3 or 4 times. Last time I talked, I asked him if he was at least 18, and he said he was. Well, I'll ask him again if he comes back. I'm not convinced that he is. He looks maybe a day over 12. How you doing, AP? AP? Are you with us? AP? AP's got a good connection. I think you might have to refresh your link. Says you got a microphone. Shit, you got multiple microphones plugged in. You got a Galaxy Bud headset plugged in. Let's see. I'm just gonna request.
Hi, can you hear me?
Oh yeah, how you doing?
Just a second.
All right, 1 second. Hold on. Give me a second.
I have to just. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Well, there is some problems and difficulties in this technology and connection. So maybe you just kind of allow us to.
I mean, it's working right now.
All right. Well, I do have questions for you. I'm not sure. Unfortunately, I had bad experience with another deconstruction person who never allowed me to talk, but rather made fun of me and just muted me all the time and blocked me, which I guess this is your profession or whatever you're called to do, just to troll other people. I guess because I thought it's a debate or
I don't know who you're talking about, but I mean
cyber deconstruction. I'm talking about cyber deconstruction. You seem like you are from the same team.
I mean, we're doing the same thing. Yeah, we're trying to do the same thing. Okay, so anyways, I don't really care what Cyber's doing. He's a friend of mine.
I'm wondering.
But my question is unrelated to what other streamers are doing. So maybe we should try to stay on topic. So are you at least 18 and are you a believer?
I am, yes.
Okay, so you're a believer. And which God do you believe in?
I believe in the only God who is true God.
Cool. And what's the name of the God?
I would like to ask you a question regarding this.
I mean, I did just ask you a question. Were you going to answer it?
Well, I'm Christian.
Oh,
don't you know?
That's all you had to say. Okay.
Right?
Do you think that the Christian God is demonstrable?
What does it mean? What do you mean by that?
Do you think that the Christian God, his existence can be demonstrated?
The heavens declares the glory of God and the firmament.
No, they don't. Not even
it's
close.
written in the Bible.
I don't care.
No, I don't care either.
Why should I care?
Can you prove me that God is imaginary? Can you prove your point?
You're actually proving
God is imaginary.
You're actually proving it right now because you're imagining a God in your head right now, but you can't actually demonstrate that God to exist outside of your head. So
the
by
Bible
definition,
says that the heaven declares the glory of God.
I don't care. The Quran says a bunch of stuff too. Do you think that the Quran's true?
Somebody built a house, and the house is a proof of a builder.
AP,
somebody painted a picture, and the picture is a proof of a painter.
So
right?
this is why you get muted. Actually, okay. So do you believe the writings of the Quran are true?
So here's I have to let you know
it's just a yes or no. That's all I need is a yes or no.
1 second. I have two screens.
This is why
and
people.
I cannot see you. I cannot
this is
see
why
you
people. This is why people mute you. I can already tell. This is why. This is why
because
Cyber
you
had to
don't
mute
have an
you.
answer. You don't have an answer.
I don't have an answer because I asked a question. I'm asking you for an answer. Did you even hear my question?
I answered, and you said that you don't care. How ignorant is that?
You didn't answer. You don't even know what my question is. Did you give me my question back to me? What was it?
So you're here for your God is imaginary.
What was my question? You don't even know because you weren't listening.
Yeah, because I didn't listen. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
because I didn't
What
care. Right?
do
Same
you
like
think?
you.
Do you think it's better to be quick to listen and slow to speak?
I don't think you have to ask me about
She
Quran
can't,
when you're talking about,
she can't
you know.
focus. Okay, so do you believe that the Quran is true?
Wait, if you don't believe Bible, if you don't
AP, just
believe
answer the question. Do you believe that
no,
the Quran is
just answer
true?
you. Can you answer the question?
AP, I think you're confused about whose
I
live
think
stream you're on right
you know
now.
what?
So
You
I
were
know
blocking and muting people.
I haven't muted
Unfortunately,
you once,
oh,
so I'm
no, no,
asking
you
you
have blocked
to.
my comments. You are actually
I've never
deleting my
blocked a
comments.
single one of your
You
comments. Your
have
comment
deleted my
gets.
comments today,
I did
and
not. I
I
literally
just
worked
want to know
14 hours a
why.
day, and I don't
Why?
even have reception in the plant. So
Well, you have
one thing.
answered my
So
comments.
one thing that I
I
didn't
received a
do
reply.
is
I
remove
had
any of your
received a reply.
comments.
I got a reply.
Okay, I gotta mute you. Okay. So one thing I don't do is remove anyone's comments. If your comment got removed in a YouTube video, it's because you violated one of the YouTube terms of service, or you used some words that somebody YouTube didn't like, or even somebody commented on your post and said something that YouTube didn't like that can get it taken down. I don't remove anyone's comments. And the reason why I don't remove comments is because the more you fight in my comments, the more YouTube pushes my video out to new people. So I want you to crash out in my comments. I want you to cry all day long in my comments. I'm not going to remove a single one of those comments. If your comment got removed, it's because you're so vile that YouTube felt the need to remove the comment. Now, I would love to have a conversation about the actual topic rather than meta commentary and crying about how you think I'm removing your vile comments. Are you prepared to have that conversation?
Well, if you're gonna be fair and let me answer and speak, then yes.
It's a yes or no.
I just answered. I
Cool.
just
Okay,
said.
so the
I just
answer is
literally said.
great. So the answer is yes. So then let's get back on track and answer the question, do you believe that the Quran is true?
No, I don't.
Okay. I don't believe that the Bible is true for the same reasons that you don't believe the Quran is true.
Okay, fair enough. Then why are you here?
Where?
To indoctrinate everyone?
No, I'm here to spread my message that religion is not only untrue, it's also quite dangerous, and there's no reason to actually believe in these sky fairies unless you have a really good argument that would lead us to believe in your particular sky fairy. Do you have one?
Well, I would like to ask you a question. Why then
I
you
just
are
asked you a
deleting
question and you
comments?
weren't even listening. What was my
All right.
question?
Why did you delete my replies?
I didn't delete any reply.
Maybe we
I
can,
don't delete comments. I
the,
already
the,
addressed this and you weren't listening. So what I said last time when you weren't listening is that I purposely don't delete comments because the more you crash out in the comments of my videos, the more YouTube sees it as being active and pushes it out to new people. If your comment gets removed, it's because YouTube auto-filtered it because you're a vile human being. So
well, I don't know if you're telling
do
the
you
truth.
want
That's
to actually talk
I
about
have
the
no
topic,
evidence
or
that
do
you're
you want to
telling the truth.
cry that YouTube filters your comments?
I'm not crying.
You're crying right
And
now.
I
Let's
have
get some
no
baby. Let's get baby
evidence.
bottles in the chat for AP.
Yay! I don't. You're a troll, and you're just trying to humiliate everybody here.
I'm trying
like
to
the
humiliate
Christians,
you because you
and
came up
you're just
here
trying to
spending
put
all
them
this time
down.
on meta commentary and
Do
actually
you get
avoiding the
paid?
conversation.
Is this
And so
sponsored
this is
by
what.
some kind of a
So
Catholic
this is
church?
what I'm gonna
Is this
do.
sponsored?
I'm gonna turn your microphone like super quiet so that when you talk while I'm talking, no one can actually hear you. So just so you know, right
Well, this is a
now,
manipulation,
when you're
right? This is a
talking while I'm
manipulation.
talking, people can't actually hear what you're saying. They just hear me talking over you. It doesn't actually do anything.
Well,
So
this is
again,
what you
I'll
do.
ask,
This is what
would
you
you
do.
like to have a discussion on the actual topic, or did you just want to cry and do meta commentary? It's up to you.
Well, if you're gonna be like having discussion, let's have a discussion.
I've
Because
been
it seems
waiting
like
to have a discussion. My
seems like
question was,
it's more like a
why
trolling
would
game.
I want to believe in the God that you believe in?
You would want to believe in him because he is the truth,
Prove
and
it.
he has the power over
Prove
your
it.
life.
Prove it.
The God is the God of God is this. Okay, the Bible says that the
AP,
God
prove
is.
it. Prove the Bible's true in the first place.
No, that's what I'm trying to do.
It's not true.
English is not my first language. I apologize, but
These arguments are
English
dog
is not
shit
my
in
first
any
language. That's
language.
true.
Prove that your God actually exists before I care what the Bible says.
The Bible says that you're gonna go to hell
I don't care.
because
The
you're
Quran says
God's
you're going to
hater.
hell. I
If you
don't
care, then
care.
why are you here?
I'm
You're
here
gonna
because people like
be
you live in
responsible for this
society and
lie.
you're
You're lying to
dangerous.
people, and you will
So
be
you're a
responsible.
dangerous individual.
You
You
are
have
dangerous.
you have toxic belief systems.
Extremists.
You're a hazard to society, and
are
you're the reason
hazard
why
to
I do
society.
these live streams.
You
In
are
fact,
spreading. You are
the
spreading
more
Satan
you do what you do, the more you crash out and act like a complete asshat, the more people realize how vile your religion is. See, you're actually making my case for me. You're actually fixing the problem for me by coming onto my live stream and crashing out like a 12-year-old rather than having an adult conversation. You're doing the work for me. I don't even need to be doing anything.
Okay, great.
So again, what is the evidence that your Sky Daddy is true?
The creation.
I don't believe that anything was ever created.
It doesn't matter that you don't believe. It doesn't make it not
Well, I asked you
true.
for the
That's
evidence, not for your belief. I know what you believe. I want the
You
evidence.
are the dumb head instead of me. Maybe it's you who is
I
really.
I don't think you've actually read the Bible.
not me.
What does the Bible say about that kind of talk?
About what kind of talk?
Read
rebuke him in his face.
review.
Rebuke
No,
him.
it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. Read Colossians 3:12.
Apostate.
It doesn't say that to do that to atheists. It says to rebuke people that are actually in the faith. So Colossians 3:12 is the verse that you should be reading. Can you read that one?
Believe the Bible. The Bible is not true. Then why
You do. AP, you believe it. You have to follow it, not me.
You're a liar.
She's crashing out hard. AP, read Colossians 3:12 for me. Read it.
You're such a hypocrite.
AP,
You're a liar.
Nobody can hear you crashing out when you do it while I'm talking. Remember, I turned your mic down.
Yeah, because that's what you do.
Look, I could turn it all the way down. Look, it's no one can hear it now. All they hear you shouting, but it's like a whisper in the background. Like, there's so many people here that would enjoy listening to a conversation with you, like talking like an adult. But what you're not doing is talking like an adult. You're talking like a little 12-year-old.
Saying that you don't believe the Bible, but
it's okay.
You are quoting me as an authority.
I'll read it for you because to you it matters. It means nothing to me. What I'm suggesting is that you haven't read your book, because in Colossians 3:12. It says, therefore, as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience. Are you exhibiting those characteristics right now, AP? Are you exhibiting compassion, kindness, humility, meekness, and patience? Is that something you're doing?
You are a liar.
Oh, so no, that's not what you're doing. Okay, just checking. I wasn't sure. I wanted to were you aware that verse even existed?
You're a hypocrite and a liar.
This is all she's got. She's got to crash out. Okay. Well, listen, AP, as fun as it is to listen to Christians crash out on the live stream, I'm going to move on to an actual adult, but I'll make you a deal because you're like you. I know you really want to like get your message out and preach.
You're a hypocrite and a liar.
I'll give you I'll give you a full I'm going to give you a full 2 minutes. And you can preach anything you want to. This is your moment. I won't interrupt you. You have a full 2 minutes. You can preach to my entire live stream and convert all of them. Is that something that you would like?
Can you answer this question? Can you?
She didn't hear a word I said because she was busy crashing out the whole time. Okay, listen, AP, it's been real. It's been fun, but it hasn't been real fun. So I'm going to let you go because you're a child. All right, and we'll move on to the next one. I'm too tired to deal with that. I'm just not going to do it. Okay. Anyways, I was being generous. I was going to give her 2 minutes rather than 1 minute. Don't you think that was generous, guys? I feel like it was being generous. Anyways, you're right, Johannes. Johannes says, book says a thing. Must be true. Checkmate, atheist. That's it. And Jackson says, "Can we please donate to drop moronic callers?" I've been thinking about that. I think we need to reintroduce that, but I don't have a firm conclusion on how I want to do it just yet. But I'm trying. And you are right, Kay. Kay says Aiden is so lost he doesn't even know where he is. That's 100% what happened. And Jackson says, "Can we?" Oh, sorry, I just read that. I meant to read this one. Johannes says, "Angels with freaking lasers and freaking on their freaking heads." That's exactly it. I was really trying to angle for a Jewish space lasers joke, and I couldn't really get it in. But Zakul says, "Wah, run for the conversation." Wah, that's exactly what she was doing. She was going to do anything other than have a good faith conversation. And Solar says, "A believer, cultist, accuses you, an educator, of indoctrination. I got so much whiplash from that. Holy crap." It's amazing that she thought she came up here thinking she was doing the Lord's work with that nonsense. Crazy. Larry Beck, she convinced me because she loves us. That's all we needed, guys. We just needed someone to come up and shout at us, and now we're all Christians, right? Isn't that how that works? Johanna says, "You are the dumb head. Really shows maturity." Oh, so mature. So mature. Dumb head. And Kay says, "How is AP not embarrassed acting like this?" I don't know. I would be mortified. Apparently she has nobody in her life. That's my own conclusion. There's nobody in her life monitoring her behavior and be like, "AP, don't. You're making a fool of yourself." Meg says, Luke 7:34, "What is Sky Daddy doing here?" I actually don't know exactly what's happening in Luke 7:34 off the top of my head. I have to look this one up. Let's see what we got. Luke 7:34. Oh, this is a fun one, actually. It's just being questioned. It says, "So the man comes eating and drinking, and you say, 'Look at the glutton and the drunkard, a friend of tax collectors.'" So basically, he was just being taken to task over the fact that, unlike John the Baptist, he hung out with like sinners and drunkards and ate and drank rather than being like pious and holy. And he was just defending himself to the Pharisees, you know. Kenneth says that lady is hurting. She's in a world of hurt. I hope she's got somebody in her family that can let her know she's insane. Maybe she needs a padded room. Also, welcome to the Kraken Crew Elite, Mr. McDizzle, Big W, and J-Rock says, "Love your work, brother." Well, thank you so much, J-Rock. I appreciate supporting the channel. And thank you for the 499 super chat. And also Sword and Light and Lightning. Great name. Says, "Bro, Sumerian mythology, and Lil Elohim, Yahweh, El Shiva, Zeus, Odin, Satan, Enki, Elohim, Vision." What's happening here? Arda, Ptah, Satan, Anu, Elohim, Brahma, Satan, gods of the Old Testament of the world, the whole world. No, they're not in the Old Testament. I'm sorry, friend. I appreciate the super chat, though, but none of those are really in the Old Testament. Elohim and Satan, obviously, but that's about it. Interesting thought, though. Interesting thought. Just not my thought. All right, let me grab. We're going to try for the 17th time. We are going to try to get Aileen with us. How you doing?
All right. If it's echoing, is it still okay?
It's not echoing. It's a little bit laggy, but it's not terribly laggy.
Is it okay though?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Awesome. So first of all, I am a Christian, and it just, out of the past few people you've been debating who claim to be Christians, it sickens me because none of them reflect what I believe Christianity should, and none of them know anything about the Bible or what they're supposed to, I guess you could say, debate about. And I just want to say I appreciate that you're willing to debate other people on disagreements, because I think it's really important to talk with people you disagree with. But I would like to talk about 3 different points on why I believe the Christian God is real. First would be scientifically, then it would be theologically, and then it would be my personal view. Does that sound all right to you?
Probably might want to start with science. I don't know if theology proves anything. It's just an explanation of what you believe, you know?
Well, if we can get, I want you to understand, I'm not here to change your mind. I know I won't change your mind. It is just I want people to see what I think Christians should look like and should reflect, because it just annoys me so much when I see how people know nothing about what they're trying to defend and how they just act terribly like that last lady was, and it was just very hard to see.
Yeah, I agree. So what would be the most compelling evidence for the Christian God being real?
Right. So, you're an atheist, correct?
Yep.
Do you believe in Darwinian evolution?
Yeah, but even if it was wrong, that wouldn't mean that God is real. So
Well,
disproving
right. And
evolution
so, do
doesn't
you?
end in God being real.
Right. And so you believe in the Big Bang, correct?
Yep.
So here's my personal thing: is that we don't see the evolution that Darwin explained on complete different species turning into more species.
Sure,
we
we do.
don't see that today. We don't. No, we don't.
Yeah, we do.
Like what?
We literally do it in a laboratory. Species is just an animal that no longer has the capacity to mate with the animal that it came from. And it can happen in as few as 10 different generations. We've done it with birds. We've done it with bacterium. We've done it with all kinds of animals. So we know that speciation is a real thing, and it happens rather quickly.
Right. So that is though with human intervention, whereas we believe. As in
not
evolution.
necessarily. It happens with and without human intervention.
There has not been a single recorded animal that goes into a completely different animal. Like, especially Darwin believes that a blue whale came from a black bear.
No, I mean, that's not what evolution teaches. But evolution does teach that modern whales came from four-legged animals, not black bears. Black bears at the time that whales evolved most likely didn't exist. So in reality, the idea that small changes over time would amount to a creature that is, in appearance drastically different than the common ancestor that it came from is not hard to believe at all. And we've got fossil records and scientific data points to prove this out. But also, again, none of it's relevant. Like, you still, if you believe that your God exists, it doesn't matter what you think about evolution. You still have to demonstrate that somehow your God is real.
Right, but I believe that if evolution is disproved, which, by the way, out of the 4 billion fossils that have been found since Darwin made his theory in 1863, I believe, not a single fossil has actually shown an intermediate between two species that he said. Yes, it is, except the ones that were falsified.
Not even close. We've got hundreds we have many thousands of them. Have you never looked at the evolution of the whale? You're the one that brought it up. Have you actually looked at the intermediate species?
I've seen what they try and make to be the intermediate species, which is just a different, what you could say, water dinosaur that is now extinct.
No,
but there's not.
The whale didn't come from water dinosaur.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
So
the whale is its own species that was created by God.
So it sounds like you've learned a couple talking points, but you haven't actually studied science. You definitely didn't study evolution. So there are entire books that are evolution, dedicated literally just to the intermediate species that led up to Homo sapiens. We definitely know that there are intermediate species for all of the modern animals, which is why we've got very fancy taxonomy trees.
So why don't we see apes turning into humans today?
Because apes and humans are part of the same classification of animal. Human beings are apes, and we have no reason to believe that an ape would turn into a human, because that's not what evolution teaches. Evolution teaches that apes and humans, specifically a subset of the ape family, had a common ancestor. And the best evidence of this is endogenous retroviruses, which are foreign pieces of DNA that find itself inserted into our DNA. And when it gets into the genome, it gets passed down to our children. And we share almost 200 endogenous retroviruses between the great ape family and the human families that don't show up anywhere else in the animal kingdom. And endogenous retroviruses, if you find one that, say, all humans have or all frogs have, it's because they all had a common ancestor that once had that particular genetic genome dysfunction.
So what was the common ancestor between apes and humans? Or I guess you could say Homo sapiens?
There's no common ancestor between apes and humans, because humans are apes. We had a common ancestor that led to both of us.
So what was first, apes or humans?
Neither. Apes are humans. Humans are part of the ape family. We had a common ancestor.
An ape is a human.
Oh, no. Humans are part of the ape family. I said that too loosely. Humans and apes are part of the same classification.
But I don't believe apes are Homo sapiens.
I didn't say apes were Homo sapiens.
Right. So what's the classification that they are the same of? What is that name?
What I'm saying is we are members of the ape family. Human beings are members of the ape family.
How, like, do you know that because you learned it somewhere, or is that like
Because-
true? Like, is there like a name for it? How are we part of the same family?
Because
we
we
look
defined
similar?
what the ape family is, and it's based on genetics.
Okay, so because people defined what the ape family is, and some evolutionists might have defined that people are part of the ape family, correct?
Yeah, we define what the characteristics of ape is, and we fit the characteristics.
Right, so wouldn't that mean then if it was people who defined what the characteristic is, that would be maybe some group of people's opinion, whereas this other group decides or thinks that we're not part of the ape family?
Yeah, I mean, it's not an opinion, it's just a definition. We've defined the ape family member as having specific characteristics that we fall into. You don't have to use the same definition, but humans that speak English do.
Right, so do you think that there's even a possibility that that definition we've given is incorrect?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Because it's based
Because
on
I know that
because it's based on genetics and characteristics, right? We invented a classification of animal that includes characteristics that we share with what we generally refer to as the great apes.
right. So just so I understand, you're saying that we are in the ape family because we have some similar characteristics in our biology to apes.
Not just some. There's a whole list of classifications that would qualify you as being a member of the ape family. And we happen to fit those qualifications, partly because we defined it to be that way. Now, listen, if you have a problem with the classification of ape, you can take it up with the zoologists and the biologists. You can ask them to change the classification. I didn't make it. I just follow the rules.
So what about the whole other group of people who are not evolutionists and have a completely different definition?
Well, you'd have to change all the textbooks then. If you want to have the textbooks redefined what the classification of ape is, you're welcome to do it. Good luck on that.
I don't think so, because the theory that apes and humans were the same, I guess you could say, family only happened when Darwin made his theory.
Yeah, I agree. We didn't know about it. We discovered it. So we discovered common ancestry, and the family of animals that biologists put humans in is the great apes.
But before Darwin made his theory, for the last thousands of years before that, we already had the definition, and we were completely different things, which then they redefined the definition to fit one person's point of view.
Yeah. No, not one person's point of view, a whole classification of science. It wasn't one person's theory. No, Darwin didn't reclassify the meaning of the word ape. This is something that was done with this was something that was done within biology, like within the actual academic field. The reason why you keep bringing up Darwin is because you've never read an actual book on evolution. You've read like apologetic books that are like trying to defeat Darwin or Darwinism. But I don't know if you know this. Like, science has moved on since Darwin. You know that, right?
I know, 100%.
Okay, so what Darwin thought isn't like the arbiter of what evolution is.
Oh yeah, because people are trying to change it over time to even more try and strongly prove their point. But
no, they're not changing it. They're just following the evidence where it leads. So we have evidence, good evidence of genetic evolution, and until you can disprove genetic or endogenous retroviruses, you basically have to conclude that we shared the DNA with a common ancestor as all the apes.
No, that's just not.
Okay,
we
then
never
how
shared DNA?
Then how can we share 200 endogenous retroviruses with them?
We might share some similar characteristics.
No,
but that doesn't mean we have the same
retroviruses.
DNA.
endogenous retrovirus. Do you know what it is?
Please educate me.
Okay, it's when I already said it. It's when a foreign snippet of DNA finds itself into your DNA. It inserts itself. It modifies your DNA, and it's highly identifiable. We can see where the snippet starts and where it ends. It leaves a form of genetic scarring, and then it shows up in the same sequence, the same base pair sequence in that DNA strand. It shows up in the same place every time for all people, all individuals who have that retrovirus. We've studied them for quite some time. We can even cause retroviruses in laboratory settings. We can cause animals to become infected and create retroviruses. So we know a lot about retroviruses. Now, if all human beings share one retrovirus, what that means is that all human beings once that are alive currently had blood from a common ancestor that contained that retrovirus. Because if you introduce a virus into a population of 1,000 people, it would never in a trillion years find itself in the same order among the base pairs as it finds itself in all humans, or the 1,000 humans that we just mentioned, right? Because the DNA strand, many billions of strands long. So the fact that a retrovirus can find itself in the same location in the DNA strand for all humans means that we all had common blood. And the fact that it's also true of the great apes and humans, but not true of humans, great apes, and any other animal means that great apes and humans had a common ancestor.
So you know that there are some, like you mentioned, DNA similarities. There are some similarities between dolphins and whales. You know
Nope,
that, right?
I didn't say anything about DNA similarities. I'm talking specifically about genetic insertions, foreign invasions.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Something in your environment infects your being, and it modifies your DNA. You end up with a snippet of foreign DNA inside of your DNA that's highly traceable.
See, me personally, obviously because I'm a Christian, I'm going to be honest with you, I am not educated enough on that specific subject, so I couldn't say that what you're saying isn't true, but according to my belief on creation, I know it's not true. I'm just going to have to educate myself more on it.
You can't know it's not true if you don't even know what it is.
No, because I know for a fact that God is real. I know I'm not going to change
You
your
definitely
mind.
don't know
That's
for a
fine.
fact. You believe deeply, but you don't know for a fact.
I know for a fact, and I can show you why, my personal view, but can we create a single-cell organism?
Yeah. We've actually
No, we
created
can't.
synthetic living cells. There was a paper written about it just at the end of 2024. It's been done at multiple universities, yeah.
You can't make matter or destroy matter.
I didn't say you could make matter. You asked if we can create a
single-cell
single-celled
organism
and yes, you can. When the laws of science says you cannot create matter or energy or destroy matter or energy, it means you can't poof it out of nothingness into something. It doesn't mean that you can't rearrange those things into something.
We can't make a single-cell organism out of nothing.
Yeah, no, we can't make anything out of nothing. You can't make things out of nothing.
What I mean is that a single-cell organism can't just be poof, it's there.
I don't know why you're putting that on me. I never said that was the case.
Well, because according to the Big Bang Theory, a single-cell organism over millions and millions of years then rolled down a volcano and
That's
became
not the
Earth.
Big Bang Theory, not even close to the Big Bang Theory. And you're also mixing Big Bang and evolution together. Sounds like you're like listening to Kent Hovind videos and you haven't read a book yet.
I don't even know who that is.
So the Big Bang Theory doesn't have anything to do with evolution. So that's your first problem. Second, the Big Bang Theory
I'm not
doesn't say
combining
that
them.
there was a single-celled organism that poofed into existence and created all things.
So how did the Earth come into existence?
Most likely through the accretion disks theory, which is essentially the debris from black hole or a star was collected via means of gravity.
Okay, where did that come from?
The star. That's what I just said.
No, I mean, where did the star come from?
The gas that formed it prior to its formation as a star.
Okay, but where did everything start?
There's no start point. The universe is eternal in the past and the future.
So it's outside of time?
Nope. It's just eternal.
Okay. So it's just always been there.
Always existed.
All right. So I can imagine you might say, in the same aspect, I believe that the Christian God has always been and never not existed.
Well, the
only
difference
thing I would
is we
say-
know the universe exists. We don't know anything about your God existing. I think it's much more parsimonious to believe that the thing we know actually does exist always existed.
But you think that how perfect that the Earth and everything, the universe was created, was all by chance?
Yeah, and I don't think it's perfect because 3 million children die a year from starvation because our planet can poorly support the humans that live here, and 100,000 people or more per year on average die in natural disasters because the planet is full of chaos, not because it's finely tuned.
I mean, the placement of where Earth is. Like, if it was even an inch closer to the sun, it would be a desert planet. If it was an
Not
inch
even
further away, it would be an ice
close.
planet.
The sun moves 14 million miles closer and further away from the sun as it orbits.
Right, that's the change in season. But I mean, overall,
The
where
change in
gravitational pull
season is not related to the 14 million miles.
It's related to where the Earth is according to the sun. Like
It is
rotating around
not. The change in season is because of the tilt of the Earth and the way that the light has to spread out over the ball of the Earth.
Right, the axis.
Yep. It's not because it moves closer or further away from the sun.
No, I mean this. I mean it while it's spinning around the sun. That's what I'm saying.
I'm aware. But yeah, so moving 1 inch closer to the sun isn't going to destroy the Earth. Where did you get these talking points from? These are not in science books.
Well, not everything is going to be in science books. Of course, there's false science books. You can't trust
Elian,
every
let me
book.
ask you a couple questions. How old are you?
How what?
How old are you?
18.
I can imagine at 18, some of these talking points sound very convincing because you probably heard them from somebody authoritative that sounded very smart. But you have to understand that for people who actually have education in these particular fields, these are really, really bad arguments. These are not good arguments, and they don't make you look good. Like, I bet you're probably smart. I think in real life you're probably intelligent and kind and thoughtful, but these are not good arguments. I think you can do better. Whoever gave you these talking points did you dirty.
No, here's the thing, because I feel like when people debate against someone else they disagree with, they only know one side of everything. What I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to learn as I further grow and advance throughout my life is I'm trying to learn both sides of the story. So one of the whether I win or not, I'm not coming here to win a debate. Whether I win or not, I'm trying to figure out what you're using to try and go against the Bible and against God and against how God created everything, so then I can do my own research to then back up against what you're saying.
Sure.
That's one of the main reasons I'm here, because I have never debated someone professionally ever, and I've always wanted to and everything, but I can't know what the other people are going to say against the Bible to then know how to back up against it. You know what I'm trying to say?
I do. Yeah, I get you. Do you think the Bible's inerrant?
Sorry?
Do you think the Bible's inerrant?
Like, do I think it's false?
Do you think it says anything that's untrue?
No.
Okay. You want to look at a few simple locations where it says things that are untrue?
Like what?
Do you know anything about rock badgers?
Rock badgers?
Yeah.
Like an animal?
Yeah.
I know what a badger is.
Okay. Go to Leviticus 11 for me. In the conversation of clean and unclean animals in Leviticus 11:5 says the rock badger, because for even though it chews the cud, it does not have divided hoofs. It is unclean for you. The hare, or the rabbit, even though it chews the cud, it does not have divided hoofs. It is unclean for you. But neither of these animals, neither rock badgers or rabbits, chew cud. In fact, rock badgers completely lack the capacity to regurgitate.
So do you think that all the animals that are mentioned in the Bible have stayed the same forever?
So you do believe in evolution now?
No, I'm saying that according to your view, you would have to say that maybe some of these animals have changed over time, or maybe the names or definitions that are in the Bible are different from what we have today. Because of course, there are so many things in the Bible that refer to something, and it's like a completely different meaning now today. And so sorry.
So God didn't give us the capabilities of preserving the correct clean and unclean animals in the text?
No, I'm saying that because humans are so flawed and because they are imperfect, that over time they could have gotten away from the real meaning of what the Bible is. And whether or not...
So then the Bible wouldn't be true.
Like, of course, no, the Bible is true. Whether or not the Bible says this has hooves or this doesn't have hooves. You said 119?
Why would God allow the meaning or the translation of these animals to be lost to history?
That's the thing. He wouldn't want that to happen, but because humans have free will and humans do sin, there are some people who try and translate the Bible differently.
Okay, so the translators got it wrong. It doesn't say rock badger or hare. The people with the PhD don't know what they're doing.
That is not what I said. And PhDs are not everything.
Well, I think if you're translating a text from Hebrew into English, it's important that you actually know the original languages and that you've studied them. And most of the people that are participating in these Bible translations do actually have PhDs in these fields of study, which is why, like, I'm much more inclined to believe that the guys with the PhDs who all agree on what these animals are, probably right.
So in a past stream that I watched, it was actually the one that I was trying to get into last, you were talking about how some of the prophecies foretold about Jesus aren't fulfilled or haven't been fulfilled.
Well, I don't think any of them have been fulfilled, but let's get to that topic next. That's my favorite topic. We can end on that one. So go to Exodus 6, 2 through 3. Exodus 6. Mm-hmm. And what version are you reading?
NKJV.
Interesting.
That is my personal... See, I don't mind KJV, except it has all the B's and the theiths and the vowels and everything. And I don't like NLT because it's too simplified. And it leaves some section titles and verses out, and then NIV translates it really weird.
Right, yeah. Okay, go to Exodus 2,
so NKJV,
6:2.
6:2?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
You want me to
so
read
it
it
says,
for you?
God spoke to Moses and said to him, I am the Lord. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and to Jacob as God Almighty, but by my name, Yahweh, I was not known to them, or the Lord. So in the Hebrew Bible, when it says the Lord in our English translation, that's a cover for the divine name of Yahweh, right? Tracking so far?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And we agree probably that the name of Yahweh is Yahweh?
Yahweh. It has... I'm more familiar on Greek, the New Testament, on Bible to Greek, but I know Yahweh has a specific meaning. But overall, I mean, it translates to God or Lord.
It doesn't, but that's fine. So what we're reading in the text then is that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did not know Yahweh by his name Yahweh. They knew him as El Shaddai or some other derivative, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Now, this is just simply not true. There's a bunch of examples of the patriarchs knowing the name of Yahweh. I think my favorite is Genesis 15, 7 through 8, where there's an episode with Abraham, and it says, he said to him, I am Yahweh who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to inherit it. And he said, oh God, how shall I know that I will inherit it? So he just gave him the name, I am Yahweh. And he said, Lord God, I mean,
just because
Yahweh God.
Just because Genesis comes first in the Bible does not mean it was written first. Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible, the Pentateuch, or as they called it back then, the Torah, and he could have written...
That's not related to what I'm saying.
Yes, it is.
It's not.
Because what if when Moses wrote Exodus 6:2, I mean, there weren't chapters or verses when he wrote it, but when he wrote that passage, it could have been written before Genesis, or it could have been written as a prequel, you could say, just like in the New Testament when they refer to Old Testament scriptures.
So it doesn't matter if Mosaic authorship is there because it's quoting somebody, right? Did Abraham actually say Yahweh God? Did those words leave his mouth?
No.
Okay, so then Moses changed the words of Abraham to be incorrect.
No, because there's multiple different, I guess you could say, translations. Like there's obviously there's different meanings, but they all talk about the same God,
Right.
Yahweh, Elohim.
But we're talking about the words of Abraham. What words did Abraham speak?
All of that.
Did Abraham say Yahweh God? Did he say that?
What passage are you referring to? Or are you just asking me if he said it?
Genesis 15, 7 through 8.
Right.
Not only does he say Yahweh God, he also says, I am Yahweh who brought you out of Ur the Chaldeans, a statement that is completely meaningless unless Abraham knows the name of Yahweh.
Then he said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to give you this land to inherit it. And he said, Lord God, how shall I know that I will inherit it?
That's right. Which means
right, so you're saying
they did know the name Yahweh.
Well, it all depends on because Moses was born way later than Abraham. I personally believe that he could have just put down the words that at the time they used for the Christian God.
Okay, so Moses went back into the text. The text originally said, I am Elohim who brought you out of Ur the Chaldeans to give you this land to inherit. And then he said, Elohim, Elohim, how shall I know that I will inherit it? That's what the original said before Moses changed it to be wrong?
No, because Moses, that's the thing, because we can never have all of the, I guess you could say, original. That's not true. Forget what I said. That's totally not true. We can translate it back to the original Hebrew and New Testament in Greek. But whether or not Abraham, which of course Abraham said, Lord God, which you have it, whatever you said, Elohim or Yeshua, whichever one you said, I don't remember. But either way, they all mean the same thing, Christian God. And Exodus could have been written and might have been written before Genesis, because Genesis wasn't the very first book written.
The question is, why would Moses go into the story and change the words away from what they actually were to something that they weren't?
Well, here's the thing. Moses wasn't alive when Abraham said those words. So, of course, when he wrote them, he would have had to, the all scripture, or not all scripture, it's God-inspired holy men to write the Bible, and that's why we have the four Gospels, which are all different. So Moses could have written those 5 books according to how he not transcribed, how he, I guess you could say, viewed it. That's why all 4 Gospels tell the same story and have different words.
So the question is whether or not it's true. And you were telling me that Moses wrote something in the book that's not actually true.
No, that's not what I said.
Well, you did, because so in Genesis 15, right, we find something very clear. The Lord introduces himself to Abraham as Yahweh, and then Abraham himself calls out to him Yahweh God. Now, if that didn't happen, then that means the book is saying something happened that didn't happen. And when you say that something happened that didn't happen, that's something called untrue.
Well, when you were talking about Exodus and it says they did not, what'd you say? They did not know the Lord.
It says it says they knew me as El Shaddai, but by my name Yahweh I was not known to them.
Right. So it honestly could be talking about how you can know God's name, like many people know God's name, but if you want to have a relationship and be truly a Christ follower, you have to have a relationship with him so that you can be called child of God. You know what I'm trying to say? Because
Not
there's a
even
difference between
close.
knowing.
You didn't address
No,
the
no, no.
problem. The problem is that the
There's
text says that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did not know the actual name Yahweh. It says, by my name Yahweh, I was not known to them. Which is why he gives in that chapter, he's giving his name Yahweh to Moses, saying, here's my name Yahweh. The forefathers didn't actually know it, but you know it.
known as past tense, right?
I mean, obviously.
So could they not be referring to known being before God showed himself to Abraham?
No. Because he says, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob knew me as God Almighty, but by my name Yahweh, I was not known to them.
Well, I'm not here to change your mind, and I know we'll have different views, and I'm really just going to have to study more on it to go against all of your points and views. I just want to appreciate you for letting me come on and sharing my views on it. I personally believe that there is a God who loves everyone and made everyone, and that he will send his son Jesus to come back again, and we will all Christians who believe in him will meet him up in heaven.
He was supposed to come before his disciples all died, according to Matthew 16, 27, 28, Matthew 24, verses 29 through 34, and Matthew 10, 23. That didn't happen.
What do those say?
It says that he's going to come back with the glory of his Father and the power of the angels and deal retribution essentially to all the people, and then, the second coming. Let's start with Matthew 10, 23. Then we'll do 16, 27 through 28, and then we'll end on 24, 29 through 34. All right. So in Matthew 10:23, he sends his disciples out to the villages to preach to the villages. And he says, when they persecute you in this city, flee to another. For surely I say to you, you will not have gone through all of the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes, which obviously didn't happen. Then he says again in Matthew 16, the Son of Man will come in the glory of his Father with his angels, and he will reward each according to his works. Assuredly, I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. And they're all dead, and he didn't come back. And then Matthew 24:29 says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. He will send out his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they will gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. And when is this going to happen? He tells you in verse 34, he says, I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all of these things have taken place. Which is why Paul, in his letters, was teaching that the end is near. Jesus is coming back, and some of us will still be alive when he comes back, so don't even have kids anymore.
Well, the end times began when Jesus was born. But, I mean, everything you mentioned, it's also mentioned in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4.
Yep,
but
verses 12 to the end, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it specifically talks about Jesus coming down in, 16, 17, something like that. And then, pre of those verses, it leads up to it. But, I mean, Jesus is going to come down in the second time, and that is not happen. It hasn't happened yet, of course, because it talks about in Revelations how he will come in all the signs, Jews returning to Israel, wars and rumors of wars.
Right, but in Matthew 24 and in Matthew 16, he says that the generation currently living will still be there when he comes back. He says that some of you standing here to his disciples will not taste death before they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. So he failed.
Well, not necessarily. It depends on if we're talking about physical death or spiritual death, which is then theology, which is, I mean, you don't care about theology.
What is the spiritual death according to the Bible?
Spiritual death?
Yeah.
Well, that would be after you die, and your spirit would be judged by Jesus, and then
Revelation 21. That's right.
Right.
And then it gets thrown into the lake of fire, right?
Lake of fire would be not until after the tribulation and the great judgment.
Yeah. So Revelation 21 is what you almost found it. You almost got to it. When you get to Revelation 21, the second death, it says, the cowardly, the unbelieving, the abominable, the murderers, the sexually immoral, the sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars have their part in the lake, which burns with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So the second death, when Jesus says, don't fear the one who can kill your body, but fear the one who can kill your body and your soul in hell, that second death comes when you're cast into the lake of fire at the judgment, right? So the second death is after the judgment, correct?
Right, because you'd have to be judged first, and then after the judgment, you would be sent to hell. And then it also says in the Bible...
So you proved my point for me then. Because in Matthew 16, 27 and 28, the people are supposed to die before he comes back. It says, some of you standing here will not taste death before the Son of Man comes, which means that he failed, because it can't be about the second death. The second death doesn't happen until Jesus comes back and judges the world, which means none of them should be dead, according to your interpretation.
Well, not according to 1 Thessalonians 4:17, where it says, first the living, then the dead will rise up to meet Jesus in the clouds, which means that Jesus in the clouds, which would be referring to...
We know,
Christians,
but you're not addressing my point. My point is, in Matthew 16, when it says that some of you standing here will not taste death, it cannot be the second death, because the second death happens after the judgment, which means it must be referring to a mortal death.
No, because it's not talking about death as we understand it, because Jesus defeated death. So, no, because when he says...
Then nobody's going to die. If Jesus defeated death, that means nobody dies.
No, the only way that you are not doomed to death would be if you accept Christ as Savior, believe Jesus died for you, and believe Jesus is God's Son. God sent him to save you from your sins, because Jesus defeated death, and death could not hold him in its grips. It says that in Acts chapter 8 or 9. It's
still doesn't fix the problem, because it says some of you standing here will not taste death, which means more than one and less than all.
Correct.
The only one of Jesus' disciples that came close to what you might classify as a spiritual death was Judas, and some is always more than one. He could have said one of you, right? He didn't say that. He said some of you, which is clearly indicating that he believes some of his disciples currently standing there would still be alive on the actual earth when he came back.
You're not understanding what I'm saying. What I'm saying,
I am.
Because Jesus defeated death, that means those who believe in him and believe that he is God's Son and he came there to save people from their sins by dying on the cross, if those who believe in him, they die, their spirits will not taste death. Obviously, there are some back then who just refused to believe it or rejected it, or and like Judas dying, it is a mystery.
Some of them will taste death, right?
So what do you mean? Some of who? Some of the apostles?
What death are they experiencing?
Which group of people are you talking about?
The disciples, the one Matthew 16 is referring to.
What are they referring to?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they're referring to the spiritual death, because whether Judas...
And when is the spiritual death?
After Jesus' second coming.
Then it still doesn't fit, because this is referring to people dying before he comes. He says, some of you standing here will not taste death until you see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Which means some of them will have died.
Jesus was talking to the apostles. That was Jesus' words. But obviously we know that it wasn't just the disciples who were with Jesus.
It doesn't say anything about people outside of his disciples.
Well, it mentions in previous scriptures where it talks about Jesus' brothers, and it talks about several other women who were with them in like Acts chapter 1 verses
We're not
13.
in Acts 1.
I know, but you can't just take bits and pieces of the Bible. You have to take it as a whole.
I'm taking the context of this passage. He's clearly speaking to his disciples.
Well, he could have been talking to the other groups, not just the disciples, like the men or brothers of Jesus. And when they elected, or I guess they chose Matthias as the 13th apostle after Judas died, it talked about several other men who were with them since Jesus was baptized. So whether they like specifically mentioned them, they definitely could have been there.
Okay, so you just think there's more people here than the actual 12 disciples?
Because obviously none of the disciples, unless, I mean, it is a mystery to the scriptures whether they continued to believe in God or not, because obviously all of them died gruesome deaths except for, what was it? John? Paul. John. Right? But
you see, like the
that's why
gymnastics you have to do to make sense of this clear failure, it matches identically with Matthew 24 when Jesus says that when he comes in his kingdom, the generation still there will be alive. This just generation will not pass away. It agrees with Matthew 16. It agrees with Matthew 10:23. You now have to make up excuses for all of these passages. Whereas my interpretation says that all three of these predictions agree with each other. Jesus predicted on 3 different occasions that he would be coming back immediately while people were still alive. In Matthew 26, he says to the leader of the Sanhedrin that you will hereby see me coming on the crowds, referring to that individual.
I truly believe, I myself, I obviously don't know everything, so I couldn't debate on everything. And so I just believe that would just be it, because the Bible does not contradict itself, because it's true. And
there's at least 100 contradictions in the Bible.
Or you could be interpreting it wrong.
Oh, not even close.
So you don't think you could be wrong at all?
No, I'm not wrong about my contradictions. You want to see an easy one?
No, I'm just saying that
you want to see an easy one?
Whether you believe.
Would you like to see an easy one?
Can I speak first?
Would you like to see an easy one?
May I say something?
It's just yes or no.
Well, not at the moment. I will in a second.
All right, go ahead.
Whether you believe you have a contradiction or not.
I do.
Well, whether you believe that or not, the Bible is completely, all Scripture is God-breathed, and it's all.
Not.
The Bible says all Scripture is God-breathed and used for teaching, correcting, rebuking, and training in righteousness.
That's adorable.
So
we don't believe that. So, in
care
Numbers
what you
23:19, what does it say? Open your Bible.
Sorry, Numbers. What did you say?
Numbers 23:19.
That reminds me of the Monsters Inc. thing. 23:19. Sorry. Yep.
God is not a human being that he should lie, or a mortal that he should change his mind. This is actually repeated in the book of Samuel, chapter 15. Do you believe that God doesn't change his mind then?
Do I believe that God doesn't change his mind?
Based on this verse?
God is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man that he should repent. Has he said, and he will not do? Or has he spoken, and he will not make it good? So no, I don't believe that God lies.
But does he change his mind?
Well, yeah, I believe so.
Okay, so the verse is wrong then.
God is not a man that he should lie. No, because he never lied.
I didn't say anything about lying. I said changing his mind.
How would that, even if God changed his mind, how would that go against the verse?
But the verse says he doesn't change his mind. So in your translation, it says repent. It's the same thing as changing your mind. Repenting and changing your mind is the same. It's the same Hebrew word. Nacham in Hebrew just means to repent or to change one's mind, which is why most English translations just say change. He doesn't change his mind.
Well, when changing his mind, he brings out different. What's the word? Different, not outcomes, different ways you could say. So like when Noah when everyone was sinning, and it mentions in Genesis, all men were wicked and thought about evil all the time. He destroyed the entire earth with a flood, but left.
We all know
Noah.
it. Ellie, and I just want to fast forward the conversation. Everyone here knows all of these stories. We've read the Bible dozens of times. We know it inside and out. That's why we're atheists. You don't have to tell us all the stories. Just make the point you're going to make.
Right. So God has a predetermined plan, and he knows every decision everyone's going to make, and he does not force anyone to make that decision.
But does he change his mind?
On what? Like
Anything.
Doing things? Because after the creation, like I need like a specific example on what he could have changed his mind about.
I didn't get that far yet. I'm asking based on the verse we just read. Does it say that he doesn't change his mind? It's also in 1 Samuel 15. I get you that passage as well. 1 Samuel 15:11 says, not 15:11, 15:29. It says, the glory of Israel will not deceive or change his mind, for he is not immortal that he should change his mind.
Right.
This is what it says. God, and generally speaking, all-knowing entities can't change their mind, can they?
Why?
Because they already know what they're going to do. You can't change your mind because that implies that you knew you were going to do one thing and then knew you're going to do another thing.
Well, God doesn't change anything because like he can't change anything to not make the outcome what it's already going to be.
Right, because all-knowing beings can't change their mind, which is why the Bible clearly states that God doesn't change his mind.
Right, but he didn't like make everything to be predetermined. He just knows what's going to happen.
I didn't say that. All I'm saying is that the book clearly states that God does not change his mind, correct?
According to the verse.
Okay, and it also says he doesn't deceive, right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, the problem I have is, like, one of my favorite examples of him doing this is Exodus 32:14, when he nearly killed all of the Israelites for their rebellion in the desert. It says the Lord changed his mind about the disaster that he planned to bring on his people.
The Bible says that he changed his mind?
Yep. Exodus 32:14.
Exodus 32:14.
Mm-hmm.
My pages are stuck together. Oh my gosh. Can't get to a simple page.
I get it, don't worry.
32:14.
Mm-hmm.
So the Lord relented from the harm which he said he would do to his people. So you're saying he changed his mind in the fact that he didn't bring the Israelites into Canaan, the promised land?
No, he changed his mind about destroying them. He told Moses to get back and let me destroy the wicked people because they're stiff-necked. And then Moses talks him off the ledge, and then it says God changed his mind about killing the people.
Where does it say that God was going to destroy the people?
Same chapter, Exodus 32.
Right, but do you have a specific verse or?
Yeah, just like a couple of verses prior. Go to Exodus 32 and do, let's see, blah, 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 blah. Got to be in like the first paragraph. There we go. Verse 9. The Lord said to Moses, I have seen this people, how stiff-necked they are. Now let me alone so that my wrath may burn hot against them and I may consume them. And of you I will make a great nation. But Moses implored the Lord his God and said, O Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that you brought them out to kill them in the mountains and consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath, change your mind, and do not bring disaster on your people. So he says, God, change your mind. Then it says, remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants, how you swore to them on your own self, saying, I will multiply your descendants like the stars of the heaven, and this land I have promised I will give you your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord changed his mind about the disaster that he planned to bring on his own people. Well, there you go.
So the Lord relented from the harm. Well, I don't think that it's talking about physical fire or anything. It would be, oh no. No. Okay, we're good.
I didn't say anything about
screen
physical
buffer.
fire. What I'm saying is the
No, I know.
text clearly states that Yahweh changed his mind about something he was going to do.
Well, I just personally believe that it's all in context. I couldn't give you a definite answer on why it says that. I'm not going to try and say something that I have no idea what I'm talking about. So I personally think that it's just a difference in as like translation by individuals, because
It's
there's
the same Hebrew word.
no, I mean by each individual person, not
Right, so I'm
the
saying it's the same Hebrew
Bible, not the
word.
book. Which word?
In both passages, in all three passages, Numbers 23:19, 1 Samuel 15:29, and Exodus 32:14, all use the same Hebrew verb nakam to refer to what God either is or isn't doing.
No, right. But obviously, excuse me. Oh gosh. Obviously, God never destroyed his people, because God said that these are my chosen people and they shall enter
Yeah.
the land of Canaan.
And he changed
or
his
the
mind. I
promised land.
agree. Yeah.
Changed his mind about letting them into the land?
No, about killing them. We just read it. He says the Lord changed his mind about the disaster he planned to bring on his own people.
What version do you have?
Literally the same as yours. I got the new.
NKJV doesn't say change his mind.
This is the NRSV, actually. Sorry, I changed it back. The New King James Version probably says relent or repent, but it's literally the same Hebrew word.
Right. It says relented from the harm, which he said.
Relenting is changing of the mind.
Right. No, I understand that. I personally believe that everything, which it says in the Bible, everything is not predetermined. God knows everything that's going to happen, and he is a perfect God and everything. But in the fact of changing his mind,
Perfect. He punishes innocent people for crimes they never committed. That's not perfect.
he is a perfect God. The reason people are punished is as a result of sin, which is mankind's fault.
Right, but they get punished for people for sin they didn't commit. So, for example, David's wives, 10 of David's wives were punished for David's sin. David's son was punished for David's sin. He was killed after only being alive for 7 days. He didn't commit any sin.
Still a result of sin.
Yes, but it's not just. Like, if I commit a sin and then my brother has to pay the penalty for my sin, that's injustice.
Well, it all depends on the context and times of that day, but either way, there would be no consequences or no sin if mankind had first not sinned.
That's not true. It was clearly a setup. It's also irrelevant. The question is whether or not it's just to punish somebody for somebody else's sin. So, for example, if you sinned, should your mother ever have to go to jail for you? Like, if you robbed the store, should your mother go to jail in your behalf?
Well, you can't just say yes or no, because times are different now than what they were. Like back then.
So justice is not an objective thing. It's subjective, and it bends in different time periods.
Well, especially because we can't have, we don't have the exact, because times are different and things change. Like, it used to be okay to own slaves. Now it's not okay to own slaves. But it would have been
I don't think it was ever okay.
It was legal, I mean.
It certainly was legal. It was never okay. The question is whether or not it was ever good to punish somebody for crimes they never committed. Why would I believe that it was a good thing to punish people for crimes they never committed?
It's never a good thing, but it's always the consequences.
But God does it.
No, because God, and it even says in the Bible, God provide, not what I'm about to say, but in the context, punishment and consequences, if done in love, is better for the person rather than not do it
It's
at all.
not
So
better
God
if
would,
you didn't commit the crime. It's never better to punish the person who was innocent. It's always better to punish the person who committed the crime.
well, that's all in difference in times. Like there are things back
No,
then
it's
that
not.
were good.
It
Yes,
was
it is, because there are things.
no, it was not. It was never good. There was never a moment in history in which it was a good thing to punish innocent people for crimes that they didn't commit.
No, I'm saying that in the context of all things, there are certain things that were considered good and okay that aren't today. And
No,
in
I'm talking
the
about the definition of justice. It was never good. It was never just to punish an innocent person for the crimes of somebody else.
Well, I mean, back then, people were, or specifically wives, were property to men, which would then be
You're making it worse, not better.
punishing.
Did God know that
No.
women aren't property?
What do you mean? Did God know women aren't property? I'm
Yeah.
confused with.
Why does God treat women like property? Shouldn't he be better?
No, I'm saying that back then women were property, and
Yeah,
so
Why didn't God know that they weren't property? Why does God treat them like property?
well, he doesn't treat them like property. I'm saying that in the
He does.
context. No, he doesn't.
He
Because
does. Second
in
Samuel chapter 12, he literally says that he's going to have 10 of David's wives raped for the sin that he committed. Did those wives deserve to be sexually assaulted for David's sin?
No, but that was the consequence. Like,
It doesn't matter what the consequence. The question is whether or not it's a fair and just punishment. Is it fair? Is it just to punish David's 10 concubines for the sin that he committed?
I mean, according to nowadays, like I wouldn't consider it just. So
Why?
you'd have
Why
to
would?
think of-
Why wouldn't you consider it just?
Well, what do you mean? Why? Like why I wouldn't? Sorry, I have to put this back. Why I wouldn't consider it just?
Yep. If God's the standard,
Because-
why are you rejecting the standard?
Well, would I personally punish someone for something they didn't do? No.
Why? Why wouldn't you do that?
Because how our brains today are wired, it's morally different than what it was back then.
So you don't believe in objective morals then? You believe in morals that are subjective, just like the atheist, which means your moral system is no better than mine. In fact, it's probably worse.
No.
Because you can take the
No.
very worst thoughts and ideas and put it in the mouth of God and try to force people to believe it. But listen, Elian, it's past midnight where I'm at. It's past 1
Me
o'clock in my home state. I've got to work super early in the morning, but I'll be live again on Friday and Sunday. Swing on by on either Friday or Sunday when you get time.
I work on Friday and then I have church on Sunday, depending on the time, I guess.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you stopping in and making so many repeat attempts to get in.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me in, and I'm happy that you talk with people you disagree with. It's a great thing to do.
Hey, thanks, man. I appreciate that. All right. Have a great night, okay?
You too. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Well, he took it. He took the beating pretty well. I don't know why he came in so confident. He didn't have a whole lot. Those were not good talking points. Johanna says Darwinian evolution. Yeah, Dunning-Kruger alert. You know it. The minute they say Darwinian evolution, it's going to be a bad conversation. And Kenneth says chickens are birds. Yeah, that happens to be the case. He doesn't understand classification. That was painful. And Hammond says proud ape here. I'm with you. Proud ape. Absolutely. And Melantheos, thank you for the $5 super chat, says the book of Greatest Show on Earth. Oh, the book The Greatest Show on Earth by Richard Dawkins specifically addresses the idiotic Christian talking points. I haven't read it yet. I know it's popular. I've been meaning to get some of Richard Dawkins' reading in my digest. I just haven't been able to get there yet. But bear with me, friends. Bear with me. We're gonna get there eventually. Also, Jackson says Christian Eric Cartman needs to Google evolution. I think you nailed it. That's +1 vibes. And Evan says, so diseases weren't diseases before germ theory? Apparently not. They weren't. They weren't diseases. And Johannes says ape is just a definition like mammal. Yeah, I think I spelled that out pretty clear for him. He was struggling though. And Serpent says evolutionist isn't a word. Creationists came up with that to make science sound like a religion. Yeah, the same reason why they also talk about scientism, like it's a religion. They just make up words to make their culty seem less culty, but it's still a cult, you know. T-Maz, thank you for the super chat, says anyone interested in evolution must read Why Evolution is True by Jerry Coyne. Also, Justin, is eternal conscious torment style hell biblical? So I actually just bought the book by Jerry Coyne. I'm getting ready to read it. I appreciate the suggestion. The eternal conscious torment version of hell does exist in the Bible as long as you get rid of the annihilation passages. The problem is we've got a lot of passages that read like eternal conscious torment, and then we've got passages that read like annihilation. You have to kind of pick and choose. And the early church didn't know either. The early church, I forget who it was, they did a survey of all of the mentions of hell in the early church, and they discovered that the early church was divided. Only about 50% of them believed in conscious torment forever, and the other 50% believed in annihilation, basically. So the fact that the Bible just isn't clear, I think, is quite evident there. David says, if he only requested his own beliefs like this, questioned his own beliefs like, I know. Could you imagine the nonsense ideas he's talking about science? If he did that with his own book, he'd be so much further ahead, but we'll see. We'll push him along. McDizzle says, I love the cheat sheet. I can't wait to study and use it in future battles. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. Well, thank you, McDizzle, for subscribing and getting access to the cheat sheet, and best luck to your debating adventures. I look forward to that. And GPEG says, I don't know much about evolution at all, but I'll call into a show to definitely say it isn't true. It's crazy how confident these claims are, friends. They're so confident. Like somebody of authority told them and they just believe it. Johannes says, if Earth was an inch closer, jump. Could you imagine saying that to somebody in science? If the Earth was 1 inch closer, like we'd all burn up. That's crazy. But I get it. He heard the talking point somewhere and never looked it up and just believes it's true. Rockhard for Doug says, even Doug's ancestors evolved from sandstone. Yep, Doug is a super evolved entity, of course. And a retired bomb tech. Thank you so much for the $10 super thanks. I really appreciate the support. And Space Lord says, I've been called a master debater. I think that's a line from something. Shit, what was that? So I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the reference, but thank you for the super chat, Space Lord. And Johannes says, this is like watching a kid pull feelers off a bug. A little bit. Yeah, you're not too far off. Not too far off. I wanted to be gentle on him, though. Rockhard for Doug says, context. Elian is asking if there were contradictions in the Bible. Oven heat goes from warm to 350. He did his best at doing the pretzels. You knew he was going to pretzel as soon as contradictions came up, and you got pretzels. I hope you had your dipping sauce ready. And Midlife Crisis Man, welcome to the chat. Thank you for the support. I appreciate that. And JMR, thank you for the $10 super chat. Says Elian got wet to the bed tonight. Praise Doug. Elian gonna wet the bed is what I should have said. Elian gonna wet the bed tonight. Yeah, he got a lot. He got a lot in that short conversation. I wish I could have gone longer, but I gotta go myself. Shadow says Yahweh or the highway. You nailed it. That's what it is in the Bible. Yahweh or torture or slavery, genocide. You know, pick your poison. You know. And Crisis said again, glad to hear you live and pop my super chat cherry. I'm so glad that you decided my channel to pop your super chat cherry. I really appreciate that. That's very kind of you. And thank you for being here. And so cool. Thank you so much for the super chat. Says I had the same mindset at 18, so I understand. He's closer than he realizes. Also, the amount of people who say the book of Revelations blows my mind. I know. I agree on both those things. I remember being where he was at 18, but I didn't make the claims I were making weren't so definitive. Like I knew that I could be saying something incorrect. He seems very convinced by these talking points because he hasn't really tried them with real atheists yet. But the book of Revelation, is always singular. It's never plural. But I get it. It's just one of those things that we do as human beings. We pronounce things wrong sometimes. The book of Revelation is one of those things. You know what I mean? But Johannes says, a miracle. Elian the prophet turned poo in the pretzel. Yeah, pretty much. He did some pretzeling. We saw some pretzels. And Larry says, this level of brainwashing is sad. Poor dude. It's hard to watch when the young people parrot these talking points so confidently in the clothes they don't know. But that's why we're here. That's why we're doing the thing, friends. And Johannes says, there's cooking and then there's incinerating. Yeah, I don't know I wish we had more time to continue the incineration. You know what I mean? But I'm glad we got some time to cook. And Johanna, good to see you tonight, says this guy should grab a few brain cells and read some science books. I can guarantee he hasn't read a science book. He read some apologetics book claiming to know about science, and he didn't actually read a science book. That's common. We expect that. Johanna says, God drowned the evil babies because he's perfect. He had to. He had to drown the babies. God forbid he let those babies grow up, you know? And Johanna again says, he is a misogynist just like his God. Yep. And it came out. I was waiting for it to come out. I knew it was going to come out. I was pushing him in that direction. And sure enough, it came out. We could have pushed a little harder on that. But again, time was not on our side. And Match Energy said, I brought 5,000 pretzels for every one pretzel. Well, we definitely got some pretzels with that last guest. He provided some pretzels. And Caleb, good to see you, friend. Caleb, thank you for the super chat. It says, were you ever just as good with debates as a theist as you are now as an atheist? I would say I was way more laid back as a theist debater because I was more trying to say, here are things that are possible and conceivable. I was already willing to cede that what I knew could be wrong. So as a theist, I was a little bit more humble actually about what I knew. As an atheist, I'm very convinced that the God of Christianity is false because now I have the receipts. Prior to that, I didn't really have the receipts, which is why I still believed in the sky carcass. But Fierce Interaction, I thank you so much for the $10 super chat. It says, kudos to Elian for facing the sensei. Sounds like he's in deep, but seems sincere. Cool of him to come onto a platform like this and have his belief challenged. And, oh, fuck, he's just excused slavery. Yep. As soon as we started talking about the moral issues, you know it was coming. You knew it was coming. He was so nice and kind, and then misogyny and slavery happened. And we didn't even get far into misogyny, but that's what the brainwashing does to you. Makes you justify horrible, horrible things. Also, Shadow says he. I may not know who the he is, but thank you for the super chat. Just a couple more. Jost Van Den Over. Interesting name. I appreciate that. Thank you for the super chat. Says, the back then argument is so bad. How did all these apologists not see this? It's weird. Here's my theory. When we run into the back then stuff, I think he's free willing it. I don't think he had an answer to that problem. That was the first thing that came to his head. Normal people don't come up with that type of a solution for these problems. But what are you going to do? When you're in a corner, you got to come up with something quick, you know? Carlos, good to see you tonight. I appreciate the super chat. He's sent out 5 Deconstruction Zone memberships. I really appreciate that, Carlos. And also, Shadow with another $6.99 super chat says he needs to be less concerned about context and more concerned with developing his cortex. Yeah, he really. That's the truth of the matter. Yeah. And Reverend Danger, thank you so much for the super chat. Says I liked Elian enough. Perfectly fine future atheist. He's on his way, guys. He's going to be an atheist one day soon. It's going to happen. All right, friends, listen, thank you so much for being with me. I know it was a bumpy road. I'm going to try to get better Wi-Fi for Friday and Sunday and hopefully stream to more platforms with better resolution and frame rates. Thank you so much for being here and liking and supporting and for being part of the live stream. You guys are the ones that make this possible. And now it's way past my bedtime. I got to go to bed and try not to kill myself at work